He was betrayed by the Empire, and the truth was buried with the death of thousands. He didn't come back just to survive. He came back for revenge. In a world of ruins and destruction, monsters fell from the sky, forming piles of bodies over which a single person walked. That young man looked down at the people there and asked in confusion, "Luo Wei, weren't we brothers who fought together? Why would you do this to me?" Luo Wei activated his voice microphone and answered the young man's question atop the mountain of monsters with another question. "Do you remember when the calamity began? Monsters emerged from spatial rifts, destroying everything in their path. Later, we called those rifts dungeons, and we saw those who came into contact with them gain mysterious powers, classes. That's why we formed the body class to conquer the dungeons, and we managed to advance triumphantly." After a brief pause, Luo Wei cast a sharp look at the young man and added, "And that's why I need to eliminate you. You have become someone beyond my control. Users of powerful classes can easily destroy the Empire's order, and you, who have even surpassed the Triple S class, are the most dangerous of enemies." Hearing the words of someone he used to trust and follow, the young man didn't know how to react to such a shock. They wanted the strongest powers to remain in the hands of the royal family so they could rule the empire. Furious, the young man shouted, "So that's your excuse for eliminating my comrades and family?" The sharp eyes of the one wearing a crown, Luo Wei, pierced the young man, showing he would do anything for the stability of his empire. The young man shouted Luo Wei's name furiously, releasing all his remaining power despite his painful wounds. He vanished from where he was, advancing like a flash of light, but before he could reach his target, a thunderous explosion occurred behind him. With no strength left, the young man fell into a puddle of mud. Mounted on a horse, Luo Wei approached, revealing the truth. "I forged the tempering of your armor a long time ago. That explosion also injected a poisonous compound into your wounds. After a Triple S rank battle, you shouldn't have enough strength to resist. I even prepared my entire army, so consider this my final act of respect for you." Above Luo Wei, all the water in the environment began to gather, forming a large sphere. The young man on the ground, already powerless, saw his life flash before his eyes. In childhood, he had camped and played with Luo Wei. He thought they were good friends, brothers for life, but now those thoughts seemed more like a joke. Before the young man lost consciousness, a voice arose in his mind. "Your secret skill, Mirror World, has met the conditions for activation. Triple S rank secret skill, an ultimate ability that reverses everything. Use it or ignore it." The young man, already powerless, stared at the water mirror below him and slowly closed his eyes, feeling himself drown in a vast lake of darkness. Decades later, in a forest region near a lake, several laughs could be heard. A group of youths had tied someone upside down and laughed at him, pretending he was no longer alive. However, the leader of the group, muscular and wearing a malicious smile, attacked the tied young man, mocking, "I can still see a spark of life in him." Laughing, another boy loosened the rope, throwing the already pale young man back into the lake once again. Falling headfirst into the water, the young man held his breath as long as he could. Outside, the group of delinquents laughed with their friends, wanting to keep the young man there longer so he would learn a lesson for pretending in front of them. Underwater, the young man was already losing breath, to the point that a red trail came out of his mouth. Suffocating, his eyes began to turn red, and shouting in his mind, he wondered why he always ended up in such situations. At that moment, the desperate young man underwater heard a sound coming from outside. Another boy, trembling with fear, had run to the group of delinquents, pleading, "Stop it! He really won't survive like this." However, the leader of the group only cast a look of contempt at the boy and replied, "If he's suffering, let him heal. Isn't he an enchanter?" Maliciously, the delinquent put his arm over the boy's shoulders and whispered in his ear, "Aren't you being hypocritical? Weren't you the one who helped us find him? This is all your fault." The bespectacled boy stammered, trying to find a reason, but that only irritated the delinquent, who proposed, "So, do you want to get in the water instead of him?" The delinquent squeezed the boy's shoulder, mocking, "Did the punching bag grow a brain?" Just as the delinquent raised his hand to punish him, a loud bang was heard. He looked back and noticed that, in the middle of the lake, a glow had appeared. Reverberations spread across the entire surface, creating a new scene. Seeing a dungeon suddenly emerge, the four delinquents panicked and started running away from the place. The bespectacled boy managed to get up, also intending to flee, but upon seeing the tied young man, he had a moment of conscience. Putting all thoughts aside, he ran toward the bound boy. He passed through the expanding dungeon's energy, entering the new scene, desolate and full of monsters. He hurriedly tried to untie the young man, but the ropes were too tight. While still struggling with the knots, he was surprised. A humanoid monster with horns, wielding a cleaver, jumped at him. At the same moment, he felt someone grab his shirt. Before he realized it, the one he was trying to free had thrown him back and faced the monster's attack. A hand was extended toward the dark creature, and channeling a small amount of energy, a blue sphere of glacial impact was created. The sphere hit the monster, causing a glow of life to pass through its body. It suffered a healing attempt. Basic heal had been used on the lesser entity, but failed because the target's health points were already full. The bespectacled boy shouted desperately upon seeing this. "What are you doing? Why are you healing the enemy?" The monster grew furious at feeling mocked and attacked again, only to be blocked by a shield of light conjured by the bespectacled boy. The boy who had cast the healing magic opened his stats window and was confused to see that he had the enchanter class. He was also surprised to discover his name was Yun Che. Looking at the energy in his hands and recalling the healing magic he had cast, he realized he was not in his original body. Normally, when someone touches a dungeon, they are bound to a system and receive a random initial class, something that cannot be changed. After that, they become stronger by invading dungeons, gaining skills linked to their classes. However, the protagonist had been a warrior who reached the pinnacle of human existence. At that time, he used a skill called Mirror World, becoming trapped in this world until hearing the cries of a boy drowning. With that in mind, he realized he had been reborn in the body of a young man named Yun Chi. That was not exactly a happy ending, but still, he was grateful to the young man who had given him the chance to take revenge. The bespectacled boy, now trying to defend himself against two monsters at once, shouted to the protagonist, "Yun Che, the monsters are gathering, help me! I won't be able to handle three at once." Ignoring the bespectacled boy's cries, the now Yun Che checked the new body's stats, which were tremendously weak. Even those smaller monsters had a speed superior to his, which would prevent him from escaping if he tried. Opening the skills window, he saw he had a basic heal, a slight immobilization technique, and one last skill that increased attack by only 5%. They were practically useless. The enchanter class was extremely niche. Its strength was based on support, and even so, it was crushed by almost all other classes. It became clear why the original owner of that body was so despised. Despite this, he still believed that, with his old combat instincts, he could deal with the smaller monster attacking him. However, it would have to be quick, as the current Yun Che discovered his stamina was low. As his only hope, he found the Mirror World skill. Dodging the monster's cleaver attack, he extended his hand and used the skill, still not understanding how it worked. However, the skill failed because the conditions were not complete. Wondering if the problem was the level or the lack of a real mirror, Yun Che lured the monster to a puddle of water. He used the skill again, and once more, it failed due to insufficient level. This allowed the monster to jump on him, pointing its weapon downwards. Dodging the attack and observing the low-level failure notification, Yun Chi confirmed that Mirror World needed a reflective surface to activate. Since the level was a problem, he decided to try using the skill on another target, the cleaver the monster carried. However, once again, the skill failed. Seeing Yun Che continue to fail, the bespectacled young man, whose shield had been destroyed, shouted, "Stop wasting time with those horrible skills. I won't be able to hold them off much longer." At that moment, a surge of energy shot into the sky as a creature leapt onto the battlefield. Roaring furiously, the malformed sovereign, a level 10 monster born from decades of resentment, raised its sword, revealing sharp teeth on a face that hid its eyes. Before that monster, the bespectacled young man fell into despair. "We won't make it. An elite monster like this needs at least someone at level 10 to be defeated." As the first monster appeared, several other flashes of energy fell from the sky, surprising the bespectacled boy. The environment became completely dark and hostile, causing him to collapse to the ground in pure shock. Before them, an army of hundreds of monsters had appeared, summoned by the dungeon. Yun Che kept trying to use the Mirror World skill, even on fallen stones on the ground, but always received the failure notification due to insufficient level. While wondering if even against a stone the level difference was so great, he saw the monster army advance with disturbing looks and a hunger to devour humans. The bespectacled young man, lying on the ground, trembled so much he could barely conjure a proper shield. Yunche then tried to use Mirror World on the malformed shield and this time received a notification saying it was impossible to reverse others' skills. The notification appeared as a clue. Quickly, he used the skill again, wondering if he could reverse his own skills. This time, Mirror World was successfully activated, reversing the original Yunche's skill, Entwined Vines. In the blink of an eye, thousands of magical thorns appeared, filling the battlefield and piercing the newly summoned monsters. The Entwined Vines skill had been reversed into Chaotic Thorns, automatically activated. One of the monsters, however, had not been hit. At least 5 times larger than a human, it swung its axe furiously at the bespectacled boy. But before the blow was completed, a red fist struck its cheek. Another monster had attacked the one threatening the young human. With raised hands trying to protect himself, the bespectacled boy was confused to see what had just happened before him. Observing the situation, Yunche realized the skill's effect had been completely inverted. Now, instead of vines entangling a single enemy with a low chance of immobilization, the skill turned into thorns attacking a target with a low chance of causing confusion, thanks to the reversal enchantment. Confusion was an effect that afflicted units, making them attack randomly those around them, and that was exactly what was happening now. The army, which had previously attacked the 2 young men, had started fighting among themselves. A confident smile appeared on Yunche's face. He had seen a useless skill turn into something powerful thanks to the reversal. Therefore, he wondered, what would happen if I reversed the rest? Observing the chaotic battlefield, Yunche realized that Mirror World truly lived up to its reputation as a SSS rank secret skill. It not only reversed the effect of the skill it was used on, but also transformed it into something completely new. With his experience, Yunche knew that if he had used the original version of the skill, not only would the success rate be low, but the effect would last at most 1 second, never reaching the technique's true potential and failing to prevent the dungeon's evil monster army from attacking him. That would have been his end. Faced with such a powerful skill, Yunche considered reversing his other skills as well. The first that caught his attention was Empowered Attack, which increased a target's attack by 5%. Without hesitation, he used Mirror World on the Enchanter skill, and in moments its name changed. Trickster's Blade, now with an initial mana cost of 40 points, granted a 10% attack increase for each mana point consumed, lasting 60 seconds. Drawing a sword, Yunche infused it with energy using Trickster's Blade. He observed the blade after activating the skill, aware that for the next 60 seconds, each of his strikes would be enhanced. While imagining the potential of such a skill, Yunche unexpectedly gained experience points and leveled up. He had reached level 6, although at first he did not know how. However, smiling, he noticed many monsters were killing each other thanks to the effects of his skills. The monsters were granting good amounts of experience, but many were still free. One attacked Yunche, who used the sword to block the creature's fist. The protagonist smiled. This was the perfect moment. Upon leveling up, all his 120 mana points had been restored. This was the ideal time to test Trickster's Blade, especially since Chaotic Thorns were still active. Using his mana continuously, Yunche advanced through the giant thorns he had created, attacking monsters without stopping. When only 10% of his mana remained, Yunche had already accumulated a 120% increase in his attack power, with 44 seconds left on the effect. Having more than double attack, so simply broke all conventions. Determined to make good use of that power, he advanced against a large monster wielding a cleaver. Yunche managed to dodge the attack and using his sword deflected it. Moving quickly to the creature's back, he delivered a fatal blow. His attacks, powerful and wrapped in shadows and afterimages, exterminated the monsters before him. The bespectacled young man, now safe, watched the battlefield in amazement. He could not believe this was the real Yunche. A level 5 enchanter should not have such strength or skills, but the young man was mistaken. Yunche had already reached level 6. Now he had 120 mana points as a base stat, regenerating 1 point per second. With this, he could theoretically maintain a constant 230% increase in his attack. Having regenerated all his mana upon leveling up, and with Trickster's Blade strengthened, Yunche felt his current strength was enough to face elite level 11 monsters. But then, amid his confidence, a huge arm tore through the ground, emerging to the surface and throwing rocks and monsters away. Surprised, Yunche faced the powerful creature that had appeared. A battle chimera devastated everything around. Its muscular arms, threatening horns, and imposing mane announced the power of a level 21 monster. Several monsters affected by the confusion skill surrounded the chimera, but the creature's power was such that it swept them away with a single blow. The bespectacled young man was shocked to see the monster. He could not believe a chimera could appear in an apparently low-level dungeon. Yunche, on the other hand, watched the secret monster with narrowed eyes, shadows enveloping his arms. The chimera roared like a lion, furiously charging toward Yunche. If caught, he would be devoured in a single bite. But the chaotic thorns surrounded the chimera, trying to stop it. They failed to affect it mentally, at most slowing its advance. Immune to chaos, the monster extended its hand toward Yunche, and, unexpectedly, the bespectacled young man jumped in front of him, wielding a shield of hope. The protagonist observed that gesture of faith and saw, for a brief moment, the image of an old paladin companion. A memory came to mind, his old ally staring at him angrily and shouting, irritated, "I already told you not to be reckless. You never listen." That memory became extremely vivid in the protagonist's mind, unlike the bespectacled young man who was hit and thrown away. The young man fell heavily to the ground, amid dirt and aged bones. Shocked by the fact that the boy had practically thrown away his life, Yunche ran to him. The young squire, Qiaoji, had lost almost all his health points. He had less than 1% remaining, entering a critical state. Yunche quickly tried to heal him, but his basic heal only restored a single health point. Yunche had to continuously use his healing skill, randomly regenerating between 1 and 5 health points, until Qiaoji got out of the critical state. After several attempts, Yunche saw his mana run out while Qiaoji's health points were still around 5%. This showed how pathetic the enchanter's healing skill was. Worried, Yunche asked the boy if he had any healing potions. Hearing that Qiaoji still had one saved for emergencies, Yunche told him to drink it. Checking the information of Trickster's Blade, Yunche noticed there was still a 110% attack increase, although with only a few seconds remaining. Against the level 21 boss with over 10,000 total health points, he had no chance of defeating it. However, upon closer inspection, he realized there were several monsters with low health, and he devised a plan to use them. Making a decision, Yunche looked at the young man with glasses. "Qiaoji, wait a minute, I will defeat them." Surprise appeared in Qiaoji's eyes at such a confident statement. Yunche dashed like lightning, attacking the monsters one by one, zigzagging as he circled the main boss. By luck, or by his understanding of magic, as soon as the short duration of the cheat blade skill ended, he gained enough experience points to level up, which fully restored his health and mana. Immediately, the protagonist began to constantly use the cheat blade skill to increase his attack points. He knew that, facing a boss with over 10,000 health points at his current level, he would need at least a 400% attack bonus to defeat it. However, since the cheat blade skill lasted only 60 seconds, he would have to use it 40 times within 50 seconds to reach that bonus and still have enough time to attack the boss monster. That was exactly why he sought to reach level 10 by defeating the smaller monsters to gain experience. Under the shocked gaze of the boy with glasses, Yunche continued to defeat the monsters, leveling up a few more times. However, the chimera would not let him move freely. With its larger size, it crossed the battlefield toward the young man. By this point, Yunche had already reached level 12. He had lost his fear of the monster, having easily surpassed his goal to confront it. Drawing his sword with a dark look filled with power, Yunche advanced decisively. Using the cheat blade one last time, he achieved a 510% attack increase, lasting less than 10 seconds. That was the time he had, but for him the power was more than enough. As if forming a spiral, Yunche's attack climbed up the chimera's arms, tearing every part of the creature's body like a whirlwind of blades. Climbing up the chimera's body, Yunche turned and mid-air unleashed a flurry of attacks on the creature's back. The power of the whirlwind shredded the chimera, which could not resist. It only roared like a wounded lion under the blows. In a matter of seconds, the chimera's health points dropped to 0, confirming its defeat. Jaw dropped, Qiaoji wondered, "Am I dreaming? A level 5 enchanter just completely cleared a newly appeared dungeon?" With the experience points obtained from the chimera, Yunche reached level 15, different from the level Qiaoji had imagined. Having defeated the dungeon lord and cleared the entire area, Yunche saw 3 items shining on the ground in front of him. At that moment, Qiaoji, still incredulous, walked up to the young man he knew and somewhat hesitantly asked, "Qiaoji, is that really you? How did you suddenly become so powerful?" The protagonist, with a look full of emotions and memories, looked at young Qiaoji. He clearly saw his friend behind that boy, noticing the resemblance between the two. He couldn't help but ask, "What is your relationship with Qiao Benben?" Shocked, Qiaoji asked without realizing, "How do you know my great-grandfather's nickname?" Hearing the word great-grandfather surprised the protagonist. He couldn't imagine that he was actually facing a descendant of Qiao Benben. The fact that the young man in front of him was the great-great-grandson of the arrogant Qiao Benben was strange. The protagonist truly believed that everyone related to him had been eliminated by Luo Wei. The protagonist was about to ask about Qiao Benben when Young Zi averted his gaze and said, "There's no reason to talk about him now. If you don't want to answer my question, that's fine. You don't have to humiliate me like that." Confused, Yunche tried to understand what was happening, but the young man, melancholically, changed the subject. We need to go back to school. Tomorrow there will be a visit to the Modern History Memorial. Missing class will get us noticed. Chaoji's words made the protagonist tremble uncontrollably for a moment, but he quickly composed himself. He knew he couldn't reveal his true identity yet, and if Chaoji decided to investigate him, he might find something suspicious. So he put the matter aside and returned to the academy. As Chaoji had said, they were going to the memorial. The protagonist imagined this could be a good opportunity to check the records of what had happened since he was betrayed by Luo Wei. The next day, in a city with buildings reminiscent of revived Gothic style, with pointed roofs, ornaments, and flamboyant facades, a double-decker tram crossed the streets alongside cars. Inside the tram, several students chatted animatedly and enjoyed the ride. At the back of the vehicle were Yunche and Chaoji, both dressed in casual clothes, resting silently. Looking out the window, Yunche noticed how much times had changed. After being absent for so many years, he saw many new things he had never imagined. Humanity now used products derived from dungeons to fuel vehicles, as well as various four-wheeled machines he had never seen before. Confused, he opened his inventory, remembering that only items left by defeated monsters could be taken from dungeons. One of the items Yunche was using at that moment was the Chimera Bone Ring, of epic grade. This ring was made from the ribs of the Dungeon Lord, the Battle Chimera, and allowed the wearer to integrate a chimera limb into their own body. He had also recovered a book obtained in the dungeon, something that was normally sold, but this time he used the passive skill equipment, Physical Resilience. It permanently reduced physical damage received. Remembering that objects that could not be stored in the inventory disappeared after defeating the Dungeon Lord, Yunche wondered what had happened in the world during his absence to justify so many changes. After a few hours of travel, the group arrived at a square where, in the center, there was a gigantic statue in front of a huge museum. While the protagonist stared at that imposing figure, he heard the teacher say to the students, "Before us stands the supreme governor of our kingdom, the emperor who ended the dungeon disasters, Luo Wei." As he led the students inside the museum, the teacher commented, "I believe many know that this place 50 years ago was the scene of the famous rebellion. At that time, we were severely afflicted by dungeons, especially after the appearance of that terrible SSS-rank dungeon. Everyone lived in fear." While showing the museum sections, he continued, "Our king Luo Wei personally led the army on an expedition. Despite heavy casualties, he conquered the dungeon. But at that moment, he was betrayed. A long-planned rebellion caught him by surprise, and the mastermind behind it, you all must know his name, Yunche." With a dark look, the protagonist listened to the distorted version of his own story. According to the official narrative, he, someone the king deeply trusted, had become an ungrateful traitor. Anger grew inside Yunche. They were the ones who had conquered the SSS-ranked dungeon. They were the ones who had been ambushed. The teacher continued fervently, "We cannot imagine the pain of being betrayed under those circumstances, but our king overcame that sorrow and fought bravely. With the help of the hero Ding Kun, he successfully suppressed the rebellion." Yunche frowned upon hearing that name. He didn't remember anyone called Ding Kun. At that moment, the delinquents who had thrown the former Yunche into the lake reappeared. They were surprised to see Yunche and Chaoji. "You're still alive. I thought you had been swallowed by the new dungeon." One of the delinquents explained, "Didn't you hear the dungeon was conquered? For that to happen so fast, it must have been the work of a master. These two must have had absurd luck." Everyone's attention turned to them. Everyone knew Ding Shu and was curious about the situation, questioning Yunche and Chao Zhi whether they had really encountered a dungeon disaster and how they had survived. Ding Shu approached and put his arm on Chao Zhi's shoulder, whispering in his ear, "You're really lucky, but you almost dragged us into that dungeon. How do you plan to pay that debt?" Chao Zhi quickly pulled away, shouting, "That was your fault. I'm going to report you." With a threatening look, Ding Shu grabbed Chao Zhi by the face. "Hey, what's wrong with you? You don't seem to understand the situation." He pushed Chao Zhi to face him and pointed to a nearby statue, where a knight was stepping on someone kneeling with their head on the ground. "Look at this statue. See your ancestor being crushed by the hero, Chao En, the traitor. You're his descendant. Do you think anyone will be on your side?" Chao Zhi fell silent. Ding Shu continued, "You can insult me all you want, but don't you dare speak ill of my ancestor." Ding Shu's loud voice attracted glances. One of the students commented, "Isn't Ding Shu's grandfather the hero Ding Kun?" Yunche, with an even darker expression, started paying attention. Another student said, "That one next to Ding Shu is Chao Zhi, right? The descendant of a traitor insulting the heir of a hero? The world really is upside down." Chao Zhi was shocked to hear everyone repeating that his ancestor had betrayed the king, and that without Ding Kun, many would have died. Inflated by applause, Ding Shu shouted, "I don't care what you say behind my back, but how dare you insult my grandfather in front of me?" The teacher approached, trying to calm things down. "Chao Zhi, your teacher will be fair. Just apologize." Chaudhry, stunned, heard the teacher continue. You should be grateful. The hero spared your family. Showing ingratitude is dishonorable. The teacher stepped away, and Dingshu grabbed Chaudhry again, pointing around. Even if I beat you here and now, no one will say anything. No one would help a street dog. Holding Chaudhry by the hair, Dingshu smiled maliciously and clenched his fist. Do you think the descendant of a hero can be wrong? For my grandfather's honor. As his fist advanced, the malicious smile was interrupted by a shoe that hit his cheek squarely. Dingshu flew away and fell heavily to the ground. Surprised, Chaudhry looked at his savior. With a dark look, Yunche said, In this family of heroes, does no one have time to educate their brats? Everyone was surprised to see Yunche, and some even recorded it. Not believing he had actually dared to attack Dingshu, he seemed like a completely different person. Yunche's words echoed among the students. No one believed he had tried to insult the family of a hero. Some who knew Yunche remembered he was only level 5, the weakest in the entire class. However, the one who mentioned this was questioned about how he managed to hit Dingshu and what he intended with that. To many, Yunche had gone mad. This guy has no parents and has always been too gloomy to have friends. Now his brain finally broke. Even with his injured face, Dingshu smiled darkly. He wiped his face and stared at Yunche. You're clearly a punching bag. You should be grateful I'm not coming after you. And you dare to attack me when I'm not paying attention. Perfect, I'll deal with you too. Standing up, Dingshu joined his group of delinquents, using their magic to attack Yunche. Seeing their intention, the protagonist snorted, and before they could react, he moved, hitting each of them with punches and kicks before they could use their abilities. In an instant, Dingshu found himself on his knees again, coughing heavily. Seeing Dingshu and his group on the ground, the academy students were surprised, not understanding what was happening. Dingshu's expression showed how incredulous he was. He couldn't understand how he had lost to Yunche. Surprised comments quickly began. Did you see that? He was knocked out again, not by accident. Is Dingshu really that weak? Hearing the mocking comments, Dingshu became furious. He hurriedly got up, letting his fiery aura overflow his body as he used the Fury skill, increasing his attack by 25% and roared. How did a level 5 support suddenly become stronger than me? You must have been lucky. Dingshu didn't want to take any risks. He quickly drew a fire hammer from his inventory, which increased his attack power by more than 300 points. With the hammer in hand, he charged at Yunche with fury in his eyes. However, before Dingshu realized it, Yunche had moved to his side and mocked, Your openings are too obvious. With the Cheat Blade skill active, giving him an 80% attack bonus, Yunche hit Dingshu with a left hook. Still unable to believe what was happening, Dingshu began to fall. Midway down, Yunche kicked him once more, driving Dingshu into the ground. At that moment, a security guard pushed the students aside to clear the way, shouting, What's going on here? Seeing Dingshu unconscious on the ground, he shouted, asking if there was any healer nearby. The students were shocked to see the fight. They had never seen Yunche move so fast. Remembering someone said Yunche was only level 5, a girl asked if he didn't seem too strong for that level. Even a little apart from the main group, 2 girls were surprised, although one didn't show it. Irritated, the security guard scolded the teacher. Fighting inside the hall is forbidden. What if something got damaged? Can't you control your students? The teacher quickly approached Yunche, taking it out on him. Insulting a hero wasn't enough? Now you dare attack a hero's descendant? Aren't you ashamed? Immediately, the teacher conjured an item from his inventory, something that caught Yunche's attention. Before the teacher could attack him, Yunche released the power of his ring, destroying the staff the teacher was holding. Everyone was surprised to see the student defeat the teacher in a direct confrontation, and they stared, speechless at the situation. With a faint energy surrounding him, Yunche reprimanded the teacher. You want to talk about shame? Teacher, you who claim to seek justice seem to be listening only to Dingshu's side of the story. Are you perhaps trying to curry favor with his family? The teacher was stunned by such a direct accusation. Don't talk nonsense, how could I? However, at that moment he noticed Yunche was wearing a ring and wondered what kind of equipment it was. Even without using his full strength, the teacher had been blocked. He blamed that mysterious ring for it. To save some dignity for the teacher, Yunche commented, Just a casual remark. I don't think you are that kind of person, teacher. After clearing his throat, the teacher replied, All right, I will investigate the cause of the conflict. The teacher decided it was better to retreat. In front of such equipment, there was a possibility someone was secretly supporting Yunche. The protagonist looked at the information of the Chimera Bone Ring and discovered that after a single attack, its durability had dropped to 37%. Although its quality was epic, it was only equipment for a level 21 lord. It was too much to expect it to be so effective against a level 35 teacher. Turning his back to the teacher, Yunche recommended, As punishment, just expel us from the museum. Yunche ignored the teacher and headed toward the exit, calling Chaudhry to follow him. As Chaudhry hurried to follow, Everyone watched Yun-che, commenting on their surprise at how completely he had changed, and even blocked a teacher's attack while still a student. After Yun-che left, the teacher remembered Ding Shu on the ground and shouted urgently, asking if someone could cast a healing spell on him. After Yun-che left the museum, with Qiao Ji following, he lowered his head, thoughts swirling in his mind. It seemed that truly no one had survived. Even Ben Ben had been eliminated by that so-called hero. The protagonist looked at Qiao Ji, who seemed quite excited to follow him, and imagined that if he asked something, the boy would answer without even thinking. Clearing his throat, Yun-che asked, "History isn't actually my best subject at school. Can you tell me the specific deeds of that hero called Ding Kun?" Hurriedly, Qiao Ji tried to recall what he knew, which wasn't much, and said, "Back then, it seems he discovered the conspiracies of the great villain Yun-che in advance. He led an ambush near the triple S-rank dungeon to provide support, and thus resolved the entire rebellion crisis." Hearing about the ambush, Yun-che remembered how he and his group, exhausted, had been suddenly attacked, and powerless to fight back, were destroyed. Qiao Ji revealed that according to history, the hero Ding Kun aspired to solve the dungeon crisis since childhood and had trained for it. After being promoted by the king, he fought in several countries for years, saving many places from crises like the famous Great Cataclysm of Winterfell City. Upon hearing the city's name, Yun-che recalled how he had been to that city, wiped out a monster army, and walked over them. Snorting, Yun-che remembered Ding Kun's statue and asked, "That sword, the sword he was holding?" Hearing Yun-che mention the fluid cloud sword, Qiao Ji revealed that it was said to be the sword used to execute the traitor Yun-che, and it was a higher-level equipment. Fury rose inside Yun-che as he connected all the facts. "Not only were my glory and achievements taken, but also my sword." With a furious look, he swore to himself, "Ding Kun will be my first target." Away from the city, there was a land estate with several mansions. That formed the Ding family complexes. Outside, a group of guards around level 30 patrolled to keep watch over the perimeter. The group suddenly felt a presence and looked back, but saw nothing except some kids walking down the street. One of the warriors scratched his head, clicked his tongue, and returned to his vigil. Having hidden, Yun-che glanced at the group from the corner of his eye, wondering, "So alert. Are these wanderers with scouting skills?" Following Yun-che, Qiao Ji tried to convince him to leave. "There are many guards here. Even if we manage to get in, the moment Ding Shu returns, we'll be screwed." Although Yun-che wanted to eliminate the so-called hero Ding Kun directly, he heard from Qiao Ji that Ding Kun spent all his time in high-level dungeons, and unlike decades ago, now people could not freely enter and exit dungeons. High-level dungeons are currently guarded by the military, and a special pass is required to enter them. Yun-che believed that Ding Kun's family had such a pass at home, which is why he wanted to sneak in. Curious, Yun-che asked Qiao Ji if so many guards were really necessary. Aren't they just one of about a dozen branches descended from Ding Kun? Why so much security? Restrained, Qiao Ji reminded him that after all, it was the house of a hero's descendant, and they also had closed dungeons on their properties. Hearing what Qiao Ji just said, Yun-che was confused. Qiao Ji was surprised he didn't know and commented that low-level dungeons had long been bought and sold. Downcast, recalling their situation, he said that this was not something people without power and influence could do. Ding Shu has guards with him all the time, so he can hunt monsters and level up at his leisure. But for us ordinary students, we can at most hunt monsters during private school practice, and even then we have to fight each other for them since they are few. Like an old nostalgic man, Yun-che clicked his tongue. This era has changed a lot. Doesn't that mean the rich get richer and the strong get stronger? Running to keep up with Yun-che, Qiao Ji confirmed what he thought and said, "A normal person after finishing studies is usually between levels 15 and 20, and after leaving school, they no longer have access to dungeons, so they stagnate. But if you get a dungeon-related job, like a miner in a government dungeon, you can reach level 30 in old age." Looking at the guards patrolling around the residence, Qiao Ji explained that people like them could enter the family dungeon they worked for, which is why they were around level 30. To reach an even higher level, it was usually necessary to enlist in the army or an official organization like a guild or military academy. Only then would it be possible to access a dungeon and level up. Qiao Ji's words confirmed what Yun-che suspected. To get stronger, he needed a pass. Following Yun-che up to that moment, Qiao Ji asked them to go back. "The level difference is too big. No matter how skilled you are, you won't be a match for the guards." Yun-che ignored the boy. It was true that his current strength was far from enough to eliminate the so-called hero, much less the Supreme King Luowei, who was under layers of protection. However, he had some confidence. The reconnaissance skills you can learn around level 30 are usually skills that cover small areas. Things like Eagle Eye, Enhanced Hearing, or Summoning Rat Spirits. They aren't enough to cover the entire mansion grounds all the time. Yun-che also saw most of the guards seemed complacent, since the dungeon wasn't that important, or because they thought no one would invade the residence. All this told Yun Che that he could get inside. While Chao Ji was still trying to understand what Yun Che wanted to do, he saw the young man jump over the residence wall. For Yun Che, compared to what he had faced in high-level dungeons in the past, this was much easier. Chao Ji tried to warn Yun Che about the intrusion, but before he could finish speaking, he was grabbed by the shirt. With Chao Ji at eye level, Yun Che asked, "Don't you want to change your life?" Looking away, Chao Ji replied, though sadly, "Of course I do, but only if I could get into a guild." Sharply, Yun Che stared at the boy, questioning him. "If you were in a guild, would things really change, great-grandson of the traitor Chao Ji?" Pulling the boy inside the residence, Yun Che declared, "A person's fate can only be changed in the present, not by betting on a future you're not even sure will happen." Yun Che didn't want to let the dungeon in front of him pass, so walking along the walls, he told the young man, "You decide if you want to follow me or not." With a serious look, Yun Che asked his friend from the past, "Will your descendant make the same choice you did?" Chao Ji's expression showed how conflicted the young man was, but in the end, making a decision, he walked with his head held high toward Yun Che. Walking ahead, Yun Che guided Chao Ji's movements, always checking for traces of scouting skills like escort-type abilities nearby. Crossing street after street, Yun Che remained silent, jumping into the central area, avoiding the guard's line of sight, and waiting for the right moment. He finally managed to enter the Ding family estate. After walking through a small forest, the duo found the entrance to a dungeon unfolding underground. Upon entering the dungeon, they noticed that the initial monsters, shadow zombies, had levels slightly higher than the monsters from the last dungeon, although their numbers were not high since the Ding family regularly cleared them out. After approaching some monsters and hiding behind graves, Yun Che commanded Chao Ji, "There are 2 monsters ahead. Try to defeat them." Chao Ji gritted his teeth, thinking he had no chance of winning, but he tried and quickly regretted it. Using a shield, he shouted in fear, "I can't believe I trusted you." The zombie tried to jump over the shield and bite Chao Ji, who was almost hit. The boy was already regretting invading the residence complex and was shouting that he wanted to go home. Seeing the young man retreat with each monster attack, Yun Che ordered him to try to strike back, but Chao Ji couldn't even find a way to counterattack. With his arms crossed, Yun Che said he was watching so nothing bad would happen. Chao Ji gained a little confidence and raised his shield. With his eyes closed, he charged at a zombie, hitting it with the light shield. But at that moment, a zombie attacked him from behind. By pure reflex, Chao Ji dodged the zombie's attack, which only hit his hair. With his arms crossed, Yun Che saw what he had already suspected. The young squire's talent seemed good. His only problem was panicking easily, so he only dared to defend himself. But subconsciously, his spatial positioning and judgment were extremely precise, so it always seemed like he was in a dangerous situation, yet he barely lost much health. Thinking he wouldn't last much longer, Chao Ji saw his shield break. Many people stopped moving forward due to lack of courage to challenge themselves, so Yun Che decided to demonstrate how Chao Ji should act. He advanced fiercely, zigzagging and defeating the monsters with the skill Blade of Deception, which gave him a 70% attack boost. Yun Che helped because he saw his friend Ben's great-grandson take his first step. Opening his information window, Chao Ji was surprised to see he had leveled up, reaching level 7. Yun Che reminded the boy that experience was distributed based on contribution, so if he didn't break the monster's balance, he wouldn't gain many experience points when Yun Che defeated them. With the resentful bone sword, an item obtained in the first dungeon, Yun Che was ready to defeat monsters and level up alongside Chao Ji. Curious to see Chao Ji was slightly more agile than expected, Yun Che asked how he had allocated his points. Chao Ji revealed that, except for the spirit attribute, he generally leveled everything equally. Yun Che frowned and questioned, "But squires don't add points to agility, right?" The poor boy revealed that if he didn't, it would be hard to find a group at school, since no one wanted to wait for someone who moved slowly, as all monsters could be stolen in the meantime. Sighing, Yun Che asked him to keep a long-term perspective in mind, as class advancement promotions after level 60 had attribute requirements. If you want to become a fortress bastion, you'll need 60 points in stamina and 90 in defense, so you can't just add points randomly. Chao Ji was confused by Yun Che's words, but the average higher-level person is around level 40. How could I think about reaching level 60? That's rank S. Putting his hand on Chao Ji's shoulder, Yun Che looked deeply into his eyes and declared, "From now on, you can start thinking about rank S. No, far beyond rank S." Chao Ji was surprised, although deep down he believed those words. Even having said that, Yun Che knew he needed a plan for his own class advancement. Opening his stats window, he remembered that his support class had only become strong thanks to the secret skill Mirror World. He was wondering which class he should choose when he noticed something, reading to himself, "You defeated a zombie, obtained souls of shadow monsters, converted into elements of the expected world. Mirror World skill gained 2,000 experience points. Discovering that Mirror World could be leveled up, he was shocked. The battle against the zombies continued. With his sword receiving the attack bonus from the Trick Blade skill, Yunqi advanced, cutting down each of the monsters. After a series of attacks, the remaining time of the attack bonus ended, and at that exact moment, a monster that had not been eliminated launched a counterattack. With sharp reflexes, Yunqi moved his body, attacking once again the greedy zombie, which had about 10% of its health left. The Trick Blade could be a powerful skill, but it was not capable of handling prolonged battles. So this time, Yunqi finished off the monster right after its duration ended. After knocking down the monster, exhausted, Yunqi checked his stamina. It didn't last long either, making long fights unfeasible. Still, he was leveling up faster than most could. He had gained 2 levels since entering that Ding family dungeon, now reaching level 17. Yunqi had been continuously obtaining souls from shadow creatures after defeating the zombies. These items were converted into Mirror World element, causing the skill to gain experience points. After checking his skills, Yunqi felt that something was wrong around him. Quickly, he moved, leaving the place where he was and climbing one of the natural walls of the cave. Hidden next to Chao Zhi, Yunqi watched the Ding family guards, who had been patrolling more frequently since they arrived there. This made the protagonist wonder if the guards had already noticed that someone had infiltrated the property. The squire, who had reached level 8, commented to Yunqi, "There are few monsters left. Continuing is very risky." Yunqi had to agree with Chao Zhi. They needed to be careful with the guards while fighting and at the same time calculate both the attack increase and the duration of the Trick Blade. That was too much work to do simultaneously. Looking at his inventory and evaluating the skill book he had obtained, the brick spell, which could create a mana brick suspended in the air, he realized that not all reverse skills were useful in combat since, when reversed, this skill had become the void technique, capable of making objects the size of bricks intangible. As for the Mirror World skill, it still needed 30% of the experience required to evolve. Seeing how powerful the reverse skills already were even at level 1, imagining how they would be after the Mirror World evolved excited him. After standing up to better observe the guards as well as the rest of the dungeon, Yunqi imagined that if they defeated its boss, his skill could reach level 2. Since other dungeons might not grant as many experience points, and this was a good opportunity, he decided they should not leave yet. First, they needed to explore the central area where the dungeon boss was located. As they walked toward a zone where vines frequently appeared, raising spiritual chandeliers, Yunqi noticed the presence of rats and owls summoned through skills. They needed to hide, as detection skills were appearing more frequently on their path. After a long walk, Yunqi finally arrived where he wanted. In a large hall, spiritual chains extended, sealing a grand being on a stone throne. Around him and below the central arena, there were several guards patrolling. Curious, Chao Zhi stretched his neck to the side, impressed. A controlled dungeon boss. This is the first time I see something like this. The school dungeon boss is also guarded by teachers. Those chains must be very high-level equipment. Yunqi observed the situation and analyzed it silently. There were many guards around, and attacking the boss would certainly attract them. At his current level, Yunqi knew it would be impossible to defeat the boss under such a guard siege. That's why when he saw an isolated guard watering a wall, Yunqi moved. Attacking from behind the man who was tending to his physiological needs, Yunqi caught him with his pants down. With a 150% attack bonus increase, Yunqi knocked down the guard, immobilizing him. With a dark aura around him, Yunqi walked to the guard. With a cloth partially covering his face and identity, he threatened him. "I'm going to ask some questions, and you better answer." The mustached guard sweated cold with fear, trying to back away, although he couldn't. "Wait, what do you want to know? Ask me, I'll tell you everything. The Ding family doesn't pay well enough for me to sacrifice myself for them." Yunqi rolled his eyes, seeing the man surrender so easily. But that was good, as he could ask about his main objective. The frightened man heard about the dungeon passes. "The old master collects a pile of them. They're not rare." Putting fear aside, the old guard looked sideways, mocking. "So you're a group of fanatics of the grandpa hero, going this far." However, his attitude returned to fear when he saw the dark expression Yunqi showed again. "Hey, it's true. I've seen many times the old master stocks the passes and leaves them with the captain of the guards." However, the guard under custody warned that these were temporary passes, and without inside help, whoever had them would certainly be questioned. Grabbing the guard by his armor and looking deep into his eyes with an intimidating expression, Yunqi ordered, "Don't worry about us, now empty your inventory." A few minutes later, Yunqi, Chao Zhi, and the guard left the Ding family dungeon. Yunqi dragged the guard, holding him by the shirt, questioning, "Is this really the only enchanter skillbook you have?" Fearing for his life, the guard swore it was and tried to explain. "The Ding family is super stingy. Most dungeon drops are confiscated. We only get the leftovers. The good stuff all goes to those in the residence. Receiving the only book the guard had, Yunche learned the skill Sunlight Baptism, a passive that increased defense by 3% for 10 seconds after being healed. With the skill's reversal by the mirror world, it became Moonlight Blessing, a skill that increased attack by 6% for 15 seconds after using a healing skill. Yunche dragged the guard, who had lost his armor to Chaoji, to the path leading to the inner residence. As they approached and saw other guards, they hid, and the accompanying guard revealed that they could not enter without being summoned. The guard explained that, except for young Ding Shu, everyone in the inner mansion was level 30, using high-rank equipment. Therefore, they didn't even need guards there. Squeezing the man, Yunche questioned if the passes were inside the residence. However, the guard quickly corrected, "No, the family head is there." The guard explained a bit about the structure of the property. In the basement was the dungeon with the boss, while above were the gardens and the inner mansion. The family head was already at level 42, and he warned the boys, "You will definitely lose against him, the mustached master." The old family master was at level 57. He had 3 sons, the family head at level 42, the second family head, also at level 42, and father of Ding Shu, and the third family head, who unexpectedly was the strongest of the 3 sons, being at level 52. The guard wanted to warn the young man who was keeping him captive that, although everyone was out of the residence on business, it would be very dangerous if they returned during an invasion. Yunche ignored the warnings and thought about the power of each lineage member. After throwing the now unconscious guard to the ground, he turned to Chaozi, who was wearing the guard's armor. Unexpectedly, Chaozi heard Yunche order him to stay outside. Yunche had devised a plan to lure the family head outside so he could safely infiltrate the residence. Sometime later, Yunche returned to the hall where the dungeon boss was chained. He observed the highest level chains used to control the boss. The dungeon would not disappear while the boss was alive, so it was common to imprison him to maximize the dungeon's potential in the long term. Besides the chains, Yunche observed the guards ensuring the place's security. Since he had already learned to disarm such chains in his past life, all he needed to do was deal with the guards. With his bone sword in hand, Yunche sneaked up to a guard who was calmly having a refreshing drink. Covering the guard's mouth so he wouldn't scream, Yunche quickly eliminated him. Seconds later, those on duty were shocked as energy emerged from the chains, which began to move. To make the family head leave his home, Yunche unlocked the level 60 chains that until then had held the boss. The giant Dark Knight rose from his throne as he regained his powers. Throughout the dungeon, the guards' screams could be heard. "What happened? The boss has gone berserk!" Outside the dungeon on the Ding family estate, the family head hurriedly commanded the guards to move. "Let's go! Reinforce the dungeon immediately!" Hidden among the bushes, Chaoji watched the guards running into the dungeon. However, Yunche, who had obtained the combat chains as his own equipment, was confident enough to enter the inner residence with ease. Sometime later, at the entrance of the Ding family's inner residence, a carriage had parked, and a butler approached to open the door, welcoming them. "Welcome back, second master and young master." Beside his father, Ding Hao, the one with 2 mustaches, Ding Shu snorted. "You'd think you'd come to greet me even seeing me like this, all because I was careless against that damn Yunche." However, Ding Hao didn't even care about his son, and ran to the other car, opening the back door as if he himself were a butler. "Miss Yunsha, please step down from the carriage." From the sports car, a blonde girl with long hair carrying an air of royalty got out. Beside her was a young woman with black hair and a firm gaze. The two had been present at the museum when Ding Shu was beaten by Yunche. Ding Hao bowed with a smile on his face, addressing the blonde-haired young woman. "Welcome to my humble residence." It was at that moment, while bowing, that Ding Hao noticed the presence of a guard. A look of disgust and confusion appeared on his face, and he quickly kicked the man away. "Don't stand in the way." Thus, Ding Hao, his son, and the 2 girls entered the mansion. Outside, behind a tree, Chao Zhi watched the whole scene. Startling the young man by suddenly appearing behind him, Yunche asked, "What's wrong? The Ding family is back, so isn't this a good time to enter?" Yunche was confused by Chao Zhi's surprised look, who, curious, asked how he had returned so quickly. Yunche coldly explained to Chao Zhi, reminding him that even though this was a level 30 dungeon, it was difficult to capture a dungeon boss alive. Warning that it would take them some time to capture the boss again, Yunche asked the squire what he had seen. Glancing sideways at the mansion's entrance, Chao Zhi pointed to the man who had been kicked by Ding Hao and revealed, "That person is my younger uncle." The protagonist listened attentively as the young man told a story. Back then, when Yunche rebelled, his family had already been wiped out, but at the same time, they didn't have to face the humiliation that other families endured. Yunche swallowed hard, imagining what might have happened. Chao Zhi, with sorrow, revealed, "After that day, The Chow family defended themselves against the Empire's malice at every moment, and under secret instructions from the hero Ding Kun, the persecution we suffered only increased. In the end, we could only become servants of the Ding family, who paraded from time to time to display the power and benevolence of the heroic family. Biting his lips, filled with resentment, Qiao Ji said that his family, to survive, had to bow before the Ding family, begging and accepting to live miserably. Qiao Ji revealed that his father's generation tried to change things by going public, but in the end his father went insane, while his uncle became a dog serving the Ding family. Nervously trembling, Qiao Ji wondered if he really should be there. Silently, Yunche observed the heavy emotions Qiao Ji carried and stepped forward. Passing by the boy, he stated, "I need to enter the inner residence." Worried, Qiao Ji tried to stop him. "Hey, Ding Shu's father is there now. He's level 42 and fully equipped. If he discovers you, you won't survive." The dark aura around Yunche brought hope. In this era where dungeons are controlled, if you don't take risks, there will be no hope to change your life. And some things, if you hesitate and worry too much about them, will never be conquered. Yunche declared to the young man, "I can help you change, but you need to make that choice first. I choose to fight, but I won't force you." Qiao Ji trembled with fear, trying to make Yunche reconsider. "But there's a great family that rules the world. Can you really fight against them?" Leaving Qiao Ji behind, in a burst of speed, Yunche answered, "I don't want to fight a family, but the entire empire." In an instant, Yunche crossed the inner residence courtyard, approaching one of the side entrances. Inside the mansion, Ding Hao heard the news of what had happened and questioned how the dungeon lord had freed himself. Hearing the sudden conversation, Yunsha asked if her presence was inconvenient. "We can come back for a visit another day if you prefer." Smiling, Ding Hao quickly denied, No, my eldest brother can handle that. A mere dungeon is not as important as Miss Yunsha." Changing the subject, Ding Hao revealed that after hearing about the young woman's visit, both his father and his other brother had decided to return home. Ding Hao was confident they could handle the matter easily, as they had even contacted Grandpa Hero, who was eager to meet the young lady. Yunche, who had sneaked inside the house, heard the conversation and wondered if that Grandpa Hero was the same hero Ding Kun. Some things passed through Yunche's mind. He had heard that an escort was necessary to enter the hero dungeons. While the girl sitting in the room with Ding Hao seemed to have high social status due to the way she was treated, Yunche grew even more curious since the girl's surname was Yun, like his own, but he didn't believe it was more than a coincidence. Putting the matter aside, Yunche decided to start moving and focus on the dungeon passes. As soon as Yunche moved, the girl who was with Yunsha, who seemed more like her bodyguard, sensed his movement. Yunche sneaked through the residence, avoiding the maids who chatted distractedly. Carefully advancing, he reached what seemed to be someone's office. At the same time, outside the dungeon, some knights along with the family head were leaving the portal. Ding He, the first head of the Ding family, the one with the distinctive mustache, commented coldly, "He was released with malicious intent, but we couldn't find any trace of anyone. To take such a risk, whoever did this wasn't just after a high-level piece of equipment." Suddenly, the family head raised his hand, ordering, "Surround the inner residence immediately." Since the young Yunsha was visiting, Ding He wanted to prevent any accident from happening to her. Inside the office, Yunche searched through the drawers but found nothing except things he didn't need. Upon finding a locked drawer, Yunche used his ability to change the shape of objects. As soon as he altered the shape of the lock, he managed to open the drawer and found several books. First, Yunche found a diary, but underneath it, there were several high-quality skill books. The first book he picked up, Slow Aura, made enemies within a 20-meter radius 20% slower. While Yunche checked the skill books, the entire mansion was surrounded by Ding family guards. Qiao Ji, who was hiding among trees and bushes, wondered why so many guards had appeared. He questioned whether they had been discovered. The young man was beginning to regret taking such a risk. More and more guards arrived every minute. He saw their chances of escape slipping away, as Yunche was taking longer and longer. His father and uncle came to his mind, and the worried Qiao Ji told himself, "If I don't run now, if they find me, I won't have any excuse to give." The third master of the Ding family appeared in the young man's mind, dragging his father while being protected by his mother. Clenching his fist decisively, Qiao Ji told himself he at least needed to escape silently, so he could save himself. However, at the moment he planned to flee, he remembered Yunche's voice. "I can help you change, but you need to make that choice first." Making his decision, Qiao Ji removed the mask covering his mouth and shouted at the top of his lungs. The guards' attention immediately turned to the source of the noise. All of them ran toward the shouting voice. Qiao Ji had shouted for a reason, to lure the guards away, creating an opportunity for Yunche to escape. At the same moment, Yunche jumped through a window, breaking it. He looked in Qiao Ji's direction with a smile, commenting to himself, "Looks like he managed to overcome himself and chose to fight." Jumping over the guards, Yunche shouted, "I took the chains in your skill books. If you want them back, come get me, if you have the courage." Quickly, the guards began chasing after Yunche. Immediately, Yunche chose the slow aura skill and reversed it, turning it into acceleration aura, a skill that increased the speed of allied units within a 30-meter range by 30%. Dinghe shouted furiously upon seeing the intruder. "Squads 2 and 3 return to support the Dungeon Lord's protection. He's not trying to escape, he's heading to the dungeon." Chao Ji, with a dark and frightened expression, looked back, wondering why Yunche was leading the guards in another direction. Yunche hurriedly ran toward the dungeon. He knew that with so many guards around the mansion, the Dungeon Lord must have already been controlled, and for that, a great battle must have taken place. Running into the underground dungeon, the protagonist planned to take advantage of what must have happened to the boss, who likely suffered heavy damage during the battle. The goal of defeating the boss was for a good cause, to evolve his mirror world skill. Inside the residence, the young Yunsha was served tea to pass the time. From there, she could hear how noisy it was outside, and acted condescendingly. "Uncle, you don't need to keep me company," Ding Hao reassured the girl, saying it was just a small thief who could soon be caught by his older brother. However, this older brother was struggling greatly just to get close to the thief. He furiously pushed aside guards in his way, ordering everyone to head straight to the boss's room. Passing by the slower guards, Ding He took the lead, ordering, "Rogues and archers, follow me to chase the intruder." Getting closer to the inner area, Yunche saw the Ding family head approaching more and more. Immediately, he opened his statistics window. Each class could add 3 attribute points when leveling up, and half of Yunche's attributes had already been allocated to agility. Additionally, with acceleration skills, Yunche dodged the arrows aimed at him. Around level 30, only archers and rogues could keep up with him, and there weren't many of those. After arriving at the boss's room, Yunche saw from a distance the boss monster, the sovereign paladin restrained by a binding magic. On the ground, the boss monster had less than 10% of its health points remaining. For Yunche, this was actually the perfect moment, when the boss was at its weakest state. He only needed to accumulate his power, and then he could defeat the monster. However, Yunche was quickly found by the guards who were already waiting for the intruder. Archers raised their bows and mages their staffs, while warriors and squires stepped in front of everyone to protect them as they used their magic and attacks. For Yunche, however, this was the perfect setup. Extending his hand, he used the chaotic thorns. The guards were shocked to see an unknown skill to them. Although many soldiers were unaffected by the skill due to their immunities, countless guards suffered from the abnormal effect of the chaotic thorns. A mage with low resistance was the first to act abnormally. He cast a fireball in close combat against his companions, causing an explosion all around. Everywhere, mages, rogues, and warriors fell into confusion, and those who were still sane couldn't act calmly, unable to believe there was a skill with such a high rate of abnormal effect. Having created chaos thanks to his skill, Yunche began to advance. He had picked up a dagger, increasing his speed by reducing the weight of his weapon. Reaching a group of guards, he only needed to get past them to reach the boss, who had few health points left. Yunche struck a shield with his sword as he passed through several guards, but the squire could do nothing but call for help and shout at his comrades not to use skills on each other. Observing the group that still maintained their consciousness, Yunche mocked them for not even having good synergy. Their group battle experience must have been almost zero. For people to have become so weak, Yunche could only imagine they had grown complacent due to the long period of peace. As he got close to the boss, Yunche encountered a group that seemed more organized than the others. At their front, a warrior calmed them. "Don't retreat. He's alone. As long as we take him down, he won't escape alive." Several vines and spells attacked Yunche, who managed to dodge thanks to quick movements. Finally, Ding He also arrived at the boss hall and shouted, "Hold him, I'll handle this personally." Equipping his gear, Ding He charged with his warrior's axe amid powerful flames. Ding He showed the strength of a level 42 warrior as he crossed the entire distance toward Yunche in the blink of an eye. The protagonist felt the approaching danger and moved quickly. While blocking a sword that tried to slow him down, he snorted, belittling Ding He's attack. Yunche drew the battle chains he had stolen, although his number of equipment pieces didn't compare to Ding He's, preventing him from winning in stats. With the chains, he could get even closer. The chains demonstrated their power by creating a ghostly energy arm. The dark energy arm, wrapped with chains, confronted Ding He's firepower head-on. However, the attack was only a decoy. Yunche used the impact wave from the clash to move toward the boss monster. He quickly created air, and approaching the sovereign with less than 10% health left, said, "Thanks for the ride." Veins bulged on Ding He's forehead as he shouted furiously, "How dare you do that?" Yunche showed he dared, unleashing a powerful attack on the sovereign to take the experience provided by the boss monster for himself. The dungeon boss, upon being hit, had its health points reduced to 0 and disintegrated instantly. With the experience points gained, Yunche leveled up 3 times at once, reaching level 20. At the same time, his secret skill mirror world also gained experience, rising to level 2. Ding! He gritted his teeth upon seeing an unknown bastard destroy the dungeon in his home. He and his subordinates furiously advanced toward Yunche and the large shadow of the remnants of the sovereign surrounding him. As the group approached, Yunche opened his information window and clicked on the mirror world skill. At that moment, Ding He's axe attack passed through where Yunche was before disappearing after the skill was used. Everyone stopped in confusion, unable to understand how the invader had vanished. Yunche, who had used the mirror world skill, saw the surroundings in a completely different way. He still seemed to be in the dungeon, but everything looked illusory, as if in another dimension. Checking the mirror world skill information, he discovered what had happened. There was a timer. Mirror walk. Time remaining, 29 minutes, 51 seconds. This was a true world inside the mirrors. Discovering that he was in a parallel world created by the mirrors, Yunche understood why everything was reversed from left to right compared to the real world. Approaching one of the guards who seemed frozen, Yunche tried to touch him, but his hand passed through. Those people looked more like illusions. Crouching down, Yunche tried to pick up one of the stones on the ground. However, it didn't seem like an illusion and even had a description. The name of the stone was Mirror Fragment, an item whose description revealed it could be taken to the outside world. Observing the type of stone, Yunche understood that after evolving Mirror World to level 2, he could take things out of that world. Wondering if the system interface had also changed, Yunche opened it. He discovered he now had a list of skills. Some, the ones he possessed, were lit up in color, while those not yet activated remained grayed out. Clicking on one of the grayed out skills, he received a notification that it had not yet been learned. Since the lit up skills were the ones he had reversed, he understood that this was the list of all reversed forms. But it was necessary first to learn the base skills in reality to activate them here. The level 1 skill, Skill Reversal, which he had obtained with Mirror World, for example, was just a simplified version of the level 2 skill. Checking the skill lists, he realized he could start selecting stronger skills that combined well with each other. This gave him an idea. He could efficiently plan his class progression. Amid his research, Yunche noticed something approaching and turned quickly. Flying through the mirrored dungeon, he saw something that looked like a soul made of energy. As the first soul appeared, others followed. As the soul approached Yunche, it changed form, transforming into an undead creature. Immediately, Yunche drew his sword, ready to defend against the flying skeleton. His attacks fell upon the monster, passing through it easily. The ease of hitting the skeleton made Yunche think it wasn't very strong, so he continued attacking. After his attacks, the protagonist received a notification. Undead contract. You can form a contract with this soul. Once contracted, it can leave the mirror world and fight for you. 20 contracts remaining. Analyzing the notification, Yunche understood that after defeating an undead, he could become its summoner. He also realized this must have been caused by the stone he had collected. It wasn't as simple as he had imagined, since the level 2 mirror world seemed to allow not only taking items out, but also undeads. He looked up at the dozens of souls flying in circles on the dungeon ceiling. For him, this had become extremely interesting, even convenient. Outside the mirror world, dozens or even hundreds of guards from all classes had gathered. Since the dungeon had been cleared, everyone wondered why the thief hadn't reappeared. They didn't believe he had simply disappeared, as if using a rogue stealth skill. Feeling many eyes on him, a rogue playing with his dagger corrected them. "No way. Our stealth has duration and form. It's not completely undetectable." Furious, Ding He attacked the rogue who dared to joke in front of him and shouted, "Then what do you think he did? How did you let him escape with so many people surrounding him? You can't find him. Then pay back everything you earned from the dungeon." Amid Ding He's furious outburst, someone appeared a few meters away from him. Both Ding He and the rogue he attacked fell silent and slowly looked aside. Yunche had returned to reality and, realizing the mirror walk time had ended, wondered if he had returned to the same original location or appeared where he was inside the mirror. Amid Yunche's confusion, Ding He recovered and shouted furiously, "Get him!" Yunche was awakened by Ding He and said, "Don't be hasty. After being surrounded for so long, this time I'll return the favor." In the protagonist's hand, an undead energy emerged. He extended his hand, causing that energy to leak out, along with countless undead ghosts that flew throughout the boss's hall, attacking the nearby soldiers. The hunters began to retreat, afraid of a magic they didn't even know. "What is that? A ghost?" Ding He, however, was not afraid and tried to calm his subordinates. "Don't panic. They are just undead monsters. I've seen them many times before." One of the ghost skeletons attacked a squire, heavily striking his shield. However, the squire was confused because he had actually managed to defend himself. By observing the ghost's stats, he discovered the monster was only level 20. Upon hearing his subordinate's comment, Ding He laughed. "Ha ha ha! I told you not to panic. Now counterattack. Catch it and I'll give you a big bonus." Excited by the reward that had appeared, knights, rogues, and even mages began running toward Yunche. But as soon as they advanced a few meters, they saw the thief disappear once again. Yunche had used the confusion caused by the undead to escape the dungeon. Even though he knew the levels of his summons were still low, he wished he could have even stronger undead, like dark knights and liches. Against such beings, a disorganized group like the one they had just faced would stand no chance. It was a great regret for Yunche that all the stronger undead he found were already under contract. And since the mirrored world had an exploration limit, he couldn't go beyond 200 meters from his starting point. Since the mirrored world reproduced the scenario he was in, Yunche imagined he could explore it from a different location, to perhaps find higher-level undead. So while running through the Ding Estate grounds, Yunche came across a scene. A warrior was grabbing Qiaoji by the face, lifting him up. "You hid very well, but did you think I wouldn't find you? Who knows what kind of reward I'll get for capturing you?" Just as the knight planned to take the young man away, Yunche moved, struck him from behind, and made him release the boy. With a shocked look, Qiaoji spotted Yunche, who grabbed him by the armor and pulled him along. "Let's go!" With the situation having become extremely chaotic, Yunche saw the opportunity to escape and tally his gains later. Inside the dungeon, the fight against the undead was still ongoing, but the warriors of the Ding family had gained the upper hand in the battle, thanks to their numbers and higher levels. Soon, the skeletons were defeated. However, the monsters, which perhaps were not exactly strong, rose again after being defeated, resurrecting with their health points fully restored. When the skeletons were about to attack once more, an energy filled the entire dungeon, destroying them definitively. A man who had just arrived exhaled a heavy breath. Ding Jie, with his characteristic three-tuft mustache, wearing his gauntlets and radiating a powerful crimson energy, explained to everyone that those were summoned creatures. Therefore, even though they were revived, they consumed magic points. They only needed to be defeated a few more times for their users' mana to run out. Inside the mansion, an old man with a gray goatee asked, "Has Miss Yunsha left?" In front of him, Ding Hao bowed 90 degrees to answer, "I'm sorry, father. I failed to keep her here. The intruders were simply too audacious. Not only did they run shouting outside the residence, but they also broke one of the house's windows." Ding Dan, the son of the great hero Ding Kun, and the old master of the Ding family, snorted irritably, frowning. "The intruder managed to enter the inner residence, and not only did you fail to capture him, you don't even know what he looks like. How is your team going to handle this?" Ding Hao had no words to apologize except to acknowledge his failure, but then he remembered something and told his father, "However, Miss Yunsha agreed to go to the hero's dungeon. At least Grandpa's matter went smoothly." Snorting, Ding Dan ordered, "As soon as you find out who did this, eliminate him." Looking at the broken window, Ding Dan ordered his son to hurry and find out what else had been taken. At that moment, Yunche was looking at an access card to the dungeon. He had obtained the card but still needed someone who could take him to the hero's dungeon. Still, there was no reason to rush. Upon checking his information, he realized he had reached level 20 in the Dingshu house dungeon. Although the Chimera Bone Ring had been practically destroyed, reaching 94% durability broken, Yunche had obtained several skill books from the Ding family's private collection. To his surprise and benefit, all those skill books were for support classes, abilities he could learn and use Reversion to improve. The Battle Song skill was an example of these. Before, it increased critical rate and damage at the cost of reducing defense. But upon becoming the Shield Song, it provided defense, also reducing critical damage received and part of the critical hit rate. With the accumulation of skills that increased his stats, Yunche saw the opportunity to defeat higher-level people just with his statistics. Yunche also obtained a piece of corrupted knight armor, level 30. With its high physical and magical defense, it would be useful in the future. Of all his gains, the most important was the upgrade of the mirrored world. Although the necromantic skills the mirrored world had given Yunche were powerful, he knew they were not enough. Based on the equipment style Yunche saw on the statue of Ding Kun, the hero should be a berserk, at least rank S. Given this imagined information, Yunche believed he would need to hire a necromantic spirit, at least of the same level, and reach level 50 to have a chance against him. While Yunche was immersed in his thoughts, the worried Qiaoji asked him, "We're not going to get caught, right?" With a slight smile, Yunche reassured the boy, "Relax. We've already lost them and we didn't reveal our faces. Everything's fine now." Despite the reassuring words, Qiaoji could only nod, still worried. Seeing that Qiaoji was still anxious, Yunche guessed it was because of his young age. Trying to make the boy think of other things, Yunche asked if there were other dungeons nearby where a powerful person had lost their life. Since Chaoji was confused by the question, Yunche explained he wanted to find a high-level dungeon where he could level up. He would explain the other matter later. Chaoji thought for a moment and remembered one that fit the requirements, but it was the school's dungeon, one they wouldn't be able to sneak into. Thinking about the school, Yunche reflected on the monopolized dungeons. Since he couldn't access them, he could only rely on special methods. Sometime later, Yunche pulled out 2 books he had obtained at the Ding house and unexpectedly handed them to the teacher. The teacher, upon seeing the purple quality book for his Wanderer class, was surprised. Yunche having such items confirmed the teacher's suspicion that someone was supporting him. Clearing his throat, he said, "The time and place for the school dungeon's openings have already been set. I can't interfere with anything." Quickly hiding the books, he continued, "However, a dungeon has recently been opened for students about to graduate. But if a student is becoming notable, he can join the team for a tour with a teacher's recommendation." Hearing the teacher's words, who that morning had been so arrogant, Yunche was pleased. The teacher shouted affirmatively, "I'll do my best to fight for a spot for you." He kept his word. For some time later, Yunche received permission to go to the school dungeon portal. There, several older students were already waiting. Yunche heard a nearby warrior say eagerly, "This might be the last dungeon of my life. I must hunt as many monsters as possible." On the other side, a young man with a gauntlet smiled, commenting to a friend, "If it weren't for the hero's gift, we wouldn't have this opportunity. We should thank him." Everyone seemed excited, but Yunche frowned, feeling that something was wrong with the dungeon ahead. The teacher known to Yunche was also present and explained to him and Chaoji that this was called the Brave Dungeon, a dungeon gifted to the school by the hero. "There are rumors that the hero once fought here. There might even be traces left by him inside the dungeon." Hearing the teacher, Chaoji lowered his head, clenching his fist fervently. The Brave Dungeon was the dungeon where the hero valiantly eliminated the traitor Chao En. Given this fact from his past, Chaoji wondered if he should tell Yunche. The teacher revealed to the pair that the dungeon level they were about to enter was quite high, so they should be careful and act only within their limits. To ensure nothing bad happened, the teacher called the knight and said, "Little Z, take care of them." The young man called Z clicked his tongue, grinding his teeth, and questioned the teacher, "Then how am I supposed to level up?" Telling the young man to stop complaining, the teacher showed that the dungeon had already been opened and asked everyone to enter. Z, however, kept grumbling. "What are these freshmen doing here? They just came to get in the way?" Irritated, Z joined a group while continuing to complain. "How annoying! Now I have to babysit 2 anchors." Annoyed, he pointed at Yunche and Chaoji, declaring, "Once we enter, just stay behind. Don't cause me any trouble, got it? Otherwise, I'll just leave you behind and take care of myself." Yunche ignored the complaints of the senior student and, leading Chaoji among several senior students about to graduate, walked toward the dungeon, which recommended entry levels between 20 and 40. Although the level was not that high, facing the energy the dungeon seemed to exude, he wondered, why does it give off such a dangerous feeling? As they passed through the portal, the academy students walked through a tall stone tunnel, where, at the end, they could see the crystals that marked the beginning of the dungeon. When the students entered the dungeon, they were surprised to also see 2 figures, Yunsha and Yunyin. The 2 girls were also in the dungeon, even though they were freshmen. Yunche and Chaoji also received sideways glances from the veterans for being there. A warrior put his hands behind his head, stretching while wishing, "It would be great if Yunsha was on our team. I'd be full of energy escorting girls." The young man even drooled just imagining it, but a companion woke him up. "Stop dreaming. They're in a completely different league, above level 30. We should be the ones asking them to escort us." Remembering this, the young man huffed. I know, I was just joking." Despite the comment, his wish remained. The young man was even more surprised when the 2 girls walked toward him. However, they passed by him and, surprisingly, walked up to Yunche. The protagonist frowned as he stared at the blonde-haired girl. He recognized her as the guest who had been at the Ding family's house, a person of high status. He didn't think there was any reason for her to approach him. Meanwhile, he wondered if she knew the original owner of that body, or if she was there to repay what he had done to Ding Shu. However, with a smile and while fixing her hair, Yunsha showed no ill intentions. Instead, she greeted him. "I saw you at the memorial hall yesterday. Your skills aren't bad, and your voice is quite unique." Confused, Yunche wondered if she really just wanted to have small talk. But that proved wrong when the girl approached and mischievously commented, "That's why it was easy to recognize you, even with the sound of glass breaking." Yunche was shocked because he had indeed shouted something to Chaoji when jumping out the window the day before. In front of him, a golden energy surrounded Yunsha, who equipped her magical gear, dress, boots, and a large white witch hat. With a smile, she turned her back, saying goodbye. "Now that we've greeted each other, let's leave things as they are for today." While her friend Yunyin changed her equipment, Yunsha finished her farewell, lowering her hat. "We're going ahead." Frowning while hiding his anger, Yunche digested Yunsha's words. She hadn't exposed him, even having recognized him. This made him wonder, was she warning me? That seemed the most plausible, since during his escape there was a possibility that Ding Shu, who had returned to the residence, had also recognized his voice. Thoughtfully, Yunche imagined it would be fine if the Ding family wasn't looking for him in the short term, because with the leveling speed he was managing to apply, soon he wouldn't have to worry anymore. Since the two girls seemed to be friendly, Yunche decided to warn them. Before they walked away, he said, "You two be careful, this dungeon has a dangerous aura." The two girls stopped, and looking at Yunche, Yunyin analyzed his words. Thinking about it, this place seems a bit strange. At my level, it shouldn't be like this. Realizing the truth in Yunche's words, she smiled slightly, thanking him for the warning before continuing on her way. All the students around were surprised to see Yunsha interacting with someone when she was usually extremely cold. Soon several of them surrounded Yunche. "Hey, do you know Yunsha? Can you introduce us to her too?" Apologizing, the protagonist pushed the crowd away. "We need to go now." The veterans were surprised to see the two freshmen wanting to walk alone through the dungeon. "Hey, where are you going? There are level 20 monsters. You'll be killed in one hit." But before anyone could follow them, the veteran who had been drooling over Yunsha stopped them. He warned everyone, "Let them go. To be friends with Yunsha, their level is probably not low." The veterans tried to remind their partner about what Professor Lee had asked them, but he reprimanded them with a dark voice. "Don't forget the real purpose for coming here. The fewer people who know about that place, the better. Do you want to share our crystals with them?" Reminding the group that everyone who entered the dungeon was equipped with a sound distress device, the warrior ordered everyone to ignore the pair of rookies. Despite his words, the awakened one showed a look of disgust, as his real goal was to let everyone who interacted with Yunsha suffer the consequences. Since they seemed so confident, they deserved to perish. Outside the dungeon, where the teachers organized paperwork about who had entered for the hunt, a young man ran toward them. Seeing Ding Shu, who was not on the list, a teacher asked what he was doing there. Ding Shu darkly questioned him. "A team just entered, right?" Confused, the teacher asked why he wanted to know. With a dark look, Ding Shu asked about Yunche and Chaoji. The two names had been mentioned by them earlier. Ding Hao frowned, hearing the name spoken by his son. "Don't try to accuse someone just because you lost a fight in the memorial hall. I don't have time to deal with your problems now," Ding Shu shouted irritably when disbelieved. "They were the ones who broke in? Really? I recognized their voices." Ding Shu's uncle argued against him. "Little Shu, the intruders were able to easily escape many guards. That's not something two students could do." Ding Jae agreed with his brother and demanded, "You need at least to prove that the strength of the two boys surpasses that of the guards. Otherwise, we can't believe you." Ding Dan, father of the three masters, ended the discussion. "Enough. We're discussing important matters. Don't disturb us." Now furious, Ding Shu grabbed the teacher by the shirt, demanding, "If Yunche and Chaoji entered, I need to enter this dungeon too." In the dungeon, humanoid monsters covered in stones and crystals attacked anyone who crossed their path. However, when attacked, a powerful energy unleashed by Yunche's sword easily destroyed them. Against the giant crystal eye monster, Yunche faced mana beam attacks. Immediately after encountering the first attack, he activated reflection mode, deflecting the energy beams that left trails in space. Soon after, Yunche instructed Chaoji to act. The young squire quickly activated a shield spell, the Surrounding Shield, causing celestial winged shields to appear around Yunchi, consuming 40 energy points. This skill lasted 3 minutes and provided a fluid shield with 500 durability points, plus 700 defense points to the target. Right after the first skill, Chaoji also used Motivational Shout. The skill, which inflamed him with confidence, increased attack damage by 5%, as well as attack speed for him and his companions. With such buffs, he felt confident to advance, leaping over the crystal eye monster. After reaching the top of the monster, Yunche brandished the sword he carried. With a single strike, he brought the blade down from the monster's head to its feet, splitting it in half and subtracting all its health points thanks to the trick blade, which was increasing his attack by 70%. For having defeated another monster, Yunchi reached level 21. Next to him, Chaoji cheerfully celebrated having also leveled up. Now the squire had reached level 10. He wasn't at an impressive point like Yunche, but he was already starting to distance himself from other awakened individuals of the same age. The protagonist opened his inventory, checking the skill books they had taken from the Ding family. Both the Motivational Shout and Surrounding Shield skills of Chaoji had been obtained there. They were extremely useful skills, and the young man could learn them even at a low level. Although the monsters in the dungeon were high level, with Chaoji's skills, they had become easier to deal with. Continuing through the dungeon, the duo arrived at a vast area with large crystals all around. According to Professor Lee, there were rare monsters in the dungeon, like the Obsidian Beast. This dark crystal beast had a certain chance to drop a support-type skill book when defeated. Gravitational Attraction. one of the skills Yunqi had chosen as essential on the Mirror World skill list. Besides the obsidian monster, Yunqi expected to find undead. Yunqi wondered if powerful adventurers had already perished in this dungeon, as their souls might still wander the place. While waiting to find these souls, he was shocked to see something unexpected. Among the crystals, a dark stone monster with crimson marks had appeared. In a crevice with gigantic purple crystals, several of these monsters lurked, overflowing with energy. Yunqi and Chaozhi hid, observing them. Yunqi never expected to see so many elite-level obsidian beasts moving together. They had even traveled a kilometer away from their usual spawn point inside the dungeon, proving they were wandering-type monsters. Wandering monsters were rare dungeon monsters without fixed respawn locations. They roamed the dungeon and were much stronger than typical monsters. Before humans became powerful, encountering a wandering type meant facing brute force. Such monsters could even roam outside dungeons and destroy human cities, something that often happened in the past, causing destruction and misery, as well as countless disasters. However, in exchange for this risk, the experience and items these monsters dropped far exceeded those of common monsters. Faced with monsters extremely powerful compared to normal types, Yunqi launched a surprise attack. Testing their strength, he swung his sword, charging the power of the levels he had reached. After delivering the first blow, Yunqi observed the health bar of the obsidian crystal beast, discovering it was constantly healing. In the next moment, not only the monster Yunqi attacked, but all the others prepared to launch a mana beam, gathering energy at their center. The mana beams crossed the entire space around Yunqi, like a tangled web. Trying to escape, Yunqi was hit in the back, even with the surrounding shield protecting him from several attacks. Little by little, the protagonist realized that even with his high speed, these monsters would not allow him to dodge. Looking at his own health bar, Yunqi noticed he had only 1/3 of his points left. Perhaps, if it weren't for Chaozhi, his situation would have been even more critical. Immediately extending his hand, Yunqi summoned the undead skeletons. The skeletons immediately surrounded him, receiving the mana beam attacks in his place. However, these small monsters lost their health points just as quickly. Making a decision, Yunqi fled, leaving the obsidian monsters behind. He was lucky because these monsters were relatively slow, allowing his strategic retreat. Since his health points and defense wouldn't increase in the short term, Yunqi retreated to Chaozhi's side, intending to rely on the young man's defense after he evolved. Thus he called Chaozhi, "Let's defeat normal monsters first to level up." Sometime later, the duo reached another floor where Yunqi had seen some monsters perfect for the squire to face and evolve. Chaozhi played his role in group battles, being essential for the front line, creating a magical shield in front of his own shield. In battles like these, people of other classes hid behind the squire to deal damage, which protected them and allowed them to be more effective. Under Yunqi's instruction, Chaozhi had put all his points into defense, and with the armor he had gotten from the Ding family guards, he now had the defensive core of a true squire. Suffering attacks from level 20 monsters, Chaozhi barely took damage, a mere 2 points. Still, Yunqi shouted, instructing how Chaozhi should act. "Shift your weight, firm your stance, angle your shield toward the attack." Following Yunqi's instructions, Chaozhi managed to block one of the attacks perfectly. What excited him more was the fact that the durability of the basic shield had dropped by a smaller percentage compared to previous times. However, Chaozhi's excitement allowed him to be caught by subsequent attacks from the crystal monster. Being hit squarely, the squire was pressed against a natural crystal by the monster's punch, losing about 20% of his health points. Immediately, Yunqi moved, destroying the monster's stone arm. Saving the young squire, Yunqi warned, "Always stay alert for the enemy's next attacks. Don't swing your shield carelessly. Leave room to block the next attack. Stay alert but keep your body relaxed. Tense only at the moment of defense." Beside the young squire, Yunqi taught him how to build a good defense, step by step. With a pat on Chaozhi's back, Yunqi told him to try again. Standing behind Chaozhi, the protagonist reminded him that, as a squire, he should always keep an eye on the companions he was protecting. With Yunqi's support, calmness and confidence returned to Chaozhi's eyes. He advanced once more, defending against the stones thrown at them. Following behind Chaozhi, the protagonist blocked attacks that passed through the young squire, while teaching, "Remember, when the stats between two opponents are similar, technique is what determines who will win." When all the monsters in that area were defeated, Yunqi leveled up to 22. Facing enemies with confidence helped Chaozhi gain experience points faster. The squire already saw his level reach 15 with a smile on his face. Upon reaching that level, he was enabled to learn a new skill book, Shield Armor. The skill applied external armor to the shield, adding durability and defense. Chaozhi learned the last skill book they had found for his class in the Ding house and tested the skill on Yunqi and the summons, protecting them. Now that Chaozhi had leveled up, the duo was confident to face the elite wanderers. However, at the place where the duo had found the wanderers, new people appeared. A group of teachers, upon seeing the monsters, became worried. For the students' safety, it would be better to eliminate the obsidian beasts. Professor Lei En was confident they could handle normal level 30 monsters, but elite wanderers were another story. Suddenly, they saw a spell fired to the top of the dungeon. That was the students' distress signal. With the signal's appearance, Ya Zheng stood up. "We need to rescue the students first." Lei En was still worried about the wanderers, so the third teacher, Rong Zheng, volunteered to stay behind and observe the monsters. With one of the teachers staying back, Ya Zheng now had confidence to go protect the other students. However, before they made the decision, a duo appeared, Chao Ji and Yun Che, who said, "We will keep an eye on them. 2 teachers alone won't be enough to handle elite monsters if they are attacking students in danger." Surprised, Ya Zheng looked at Yun Che and Chao Ji, asking who they were. Getting straight to the point, Yun Che commented on how the wanderers weren't that fast and how they hadn't noticed their presence yet. If they kept their distance, they would be fine. The trio of rescue teachers exchanged glances. Since the young man was confident they would be fine, they gathered their energies to speed up their movements and go to the rescue, warning, "They're extremely dangerous. Stay hidden and don't act rashly." Seeing the teachers leave, Yun Che planned to do exactly the opposite of what was asked. As soon as the teachers left, Yun Che leapt toward the first obsidian monster, unleashing a sword strike charged with tremendous energy. The beast countered with a mana beam, which Yun Che summoned the skeletons to block. Chao Ji did not remain idle, using shield armor and surrounding shield. The undead, with their defense enhanced by magic, blocked the mana beams, allowing Yun Che to move freely. However, the skeletons could not hold out for long and were destroyed. The mana beam spread quickly, but before being hit, the protagonist attacked the obsidian monster at 3 points, draining part of its life. Seeing that the level 30 wandering monster was nearly out of health, Yun Che jumped onto its back and, with devastating strikes from various angles, turned the stone monster into crumbs. The monster's health dropped to 0, and it was eliminated. Having defeated the first wandering monster, Yun Che felt more accustomed to his new class. Still, there was much to reach the strength of his previous class. Training while attacking, he zigzagged around the skeletons, leaping toward another obsidian beast while relying on his attack bonuses from reversed skills. Even so, the base attack of his support class was very low. It would be great to increase that stat, which nonetheless was already enough to destroy the second obsidian monster, despite the effort. After defeating the second monster, Yun Che leveled up again. This proved how high the experience yield was from wandering monsters. Having defeated another beast, Yun Che could obtain the items it dropped. His eyes gleamed as something incredible appeared. The long crystal sword Yun Che obtained had an intense magenta color, as well as an attack power of 552 points. The sword, focused on a single stat, seemed perfect for Yun Che, who had a base attack lower than he wished. Brandishing the sword to get used to it, he declared, "Hunting will become much easier now." Despite obtaining a good sword, Yun Che still felt sad for not getting the gravitational pull skill book he wanted. After defeating the monsters in the area, he wished his luck would be a bit better to find more wandering species. As soon as he wished that, he unexpectedly saw an explosion in the dungeon sky. He remembered that was the place where the teachers had gone. This time, the explosion was bigger, a signal only the teachers sent. At that very moment, Professor Ya Zheng found himself in great trouble. Blocking a passage with his shield, he shouted in disbelief, "Why are so many wandering species gathered here?" In the large area ahead of them, dozens of obsidian monsters were present. While they protected themselves on one side, on the other side of the arena, several students also tried to protect themselves. At the highest point, Yun Sha, seeing the monsters, asked Yun Yin and others what was happening. An instructor approached, responding to the young woman, "It's not clear yet. We just arrived after seeing the signal." Pointing to the cave on the other side of the valley, he said, "The signal came from there. They must be trapped there. We are organizing a rescue, but there are so many monsters that even all of us teachers together don't seem enough." A mage teacher, worried, asked the young women for help. With a confident smile, Yun Sha accepted the mission. "It's our duty." The mage raised her hand, lifting a cross of light. It quickly spread, multiplying around her, making several magic circles appear as she cast a spell. Mystic Art. Starlight. The spell granted a buff to all nearby, increasing spirit by 2 points and attack power by 20%. Everyone was impressed by the great effect of the ability, which seemed to be even epic grade. In the next moment, Yun Sha used another spell, Gravitational Pressure, causing a large wandering monster to be pressed against the ground, which was destroyed. Immediately, seizing the opportunity, Yun Yin drew her daggers and with the crimson attack of Secret Thorns, melted all the health points of that crystal monster. Seeing the duo's coordination, everyone was amazed and relieved, as there was truly hope they could rescue those in the cave. Alongside the group, Yunche observed Yunsha. Not only her equipment, but also her skills were top tier. He felt that even if he weren't there, everything would be fine. Still, Yunche wondered how the situation had gotten this bad, and what had attracted so many wandering species. Warning Qiaoji that he would check the surroundings, Yunche asked him to stay put. Immediately, Yunche used the mirror walk skill, entering the parallel world. Since the place was full of crystals reflecting like mirrors, he could enter that world at any time. Yunci just hadn't discovered how to leave that world the day before, at the Ding family house, needing to wait for the skill's duration to end to exit. Walking through the crystal terrain, Yunche observed that the monsters did not have ghosts like people. Still, the monsters' bodies physically existed in that mirror world, which was strange, since besides that, no living form could enter that world. Walking to the cave, Yunche observed the teachers and students there. Looking at someone, he wondered, "Is that Xiaoxi?" Yunche imagined it was they who had attracted the wanderers to the cave, needing to use the danger signal. The terrain seemed useful for protection, but it didn't seem it would hold for long. Trying to figure out what had attracted the wandering species, Yunche was quite confused, since everything seemed made of crystals. However, soon a different light, green, caught his attention. He never imagined he would find such a thing in that place. Those green crystals caught Yunche's attention. They were special crystal ores, probably the reason Xiaoxi and her group went to the cave. Unlike the crystals from the outside world, dungeons could produce special materials that did not exist in the original world. Professions with utility skills could use such materials to craft special items, like equipment and accessories. When Yunche touched those crystals, he realized they were so valuable they should be worth more than their weight in gold. Upon touching the crystals, he was surprised by a notification. Mirror image crystal ore can be looted. Return to the real world from here? Seeing the notification, a thought came to Yunche's mind. He discovered that if there was a mirror surface in the mirror world, he could return to the real world from that position. Imagining there was much more to discover about this skill, Yunche mentally noted that he would need to study it properly. Leaving the notification and the crystal aside, he resumed exploring the cave. The amount of ore was unlike normal. Mining all that ore could make an ordinary person a billionaire, so it made sense that the wandering species were attracted to it. Outside, Yunsha continued using gravitational pressure magic to clear the path, knocking down monsters. Yunyin, with her dual blade dance, tore through the crystals, combining it with crowd control skills. A large magical circle of light appeared in the area, casting a rain of stars over the monsters, surprising everyone. Are all their skills epic grade? Why are they so powerful? They're stronger than the teachers. At some point, the last monster was cut down, and with its destruction, the teachers protecting the students in the cave were found. The students sighed in relief. "We're saved." Entering the cave, Yunyin warned, "Don't let your guard down. We still have to fight our way out, and everyone stop being exhausted." Arriving at the cave, Yunsha, confident from having defeated several monsters to get there, thought it would be easier to leave. But her excited look turned into surprise. The youths in front of her shifted from relieved to frightened by what was behind her. When the young woman turned around, she faced dozens, maybe hundreds of wandering monsters, filling the entire escape path as well as the valley. With so many monsters in that area, the students couldn't help but be scared, as it seemed all the wandering species of the dungeon had gathered there. Unaware of what was happening, Yunche kept advancing in the mirror world. He attacked the stone walls in his path, forcing his way and following the green light of the crystals. It seemed like a labyrinth, so destroying the walls was the fastest way to reach the end. And when he arrived, his eyes widened. Above a stone tree, a star of crystals shone with a much more concentrated essence than any crystal he had seen in that place. That star-shaped crystal seemed to be, along with others, a secret treasure of the dungeon. If crystal ores were considered special dungeon products, then the crystal core could only be called a secret treasure. A secret treasure was a crystallized condensation of all the special products of a dungeon. It took a long and irregular time to form such a core. An ordinary person would never see such an item in their life, and here it was before Yunche, a secret treasure that, like others, possessed a special effect. Upon picking up the mirror image crystal core, he discovered its power. When used, such a core would grant its user 10 stamina points, plus mana regeneration, and a 20% reduction in damage from light and electric attributes. The base stat increase and damage reduction caught the attention of the young man holding the crystal core, as large as a basketball in his hands. If consumed, he knew his health points would increase, and the skill Trick Blade could be used more times thanks to the increased mana regeneration. The damage reduction on 2 attributes was even more special. Such effects didn't appear often and were rare even on the best equipment. After smiling broadly, a confused look appeared on Yunche's face. for there was something strange about the situation. Just as the crystal ores attracted the wandering species with the presence of the secret treasure, that dungeon should logically have a monster whose strength exceeded theirs. With the crystal core in his hands, Yunche found himself with two options: withdraw the item from the mirror world or use it immediately. Upon clicking use, a notification appeared. Using or taking items from the mirror world would consume 10 minutes of the remaining skill duration. As he prepared to wait, people outside were surprised. The stone walls of the cave began to move and crumble. From the cave where everyone had been minutes before, a giant, dark crystal monster rose, tens of meters tall. Its size alone made those below look like ants. Everyone trembled upon seeing the Lord of the Wandering Species and shouted, "Is that a secret lord?" The Wandering Lord existed independently of the Dungeon Lord. This was a rare secret boss. Immediately after appearing, the Wandering Boss demonstrated its strength, far beyond that of a common lord, attacking and destroying the surroundings of the teachers and students. Such a monster was far beyond what the humans there could face. Surrounded by an army of wandering monsters and protected by the teachers' shields, the group of students, frightened, never imagined that a wandering lord would appear against a high-level dungeon. In each of their eyes, fear and panic were evident before such a lordly monster. Yunsha took the lead after the desperate confusion began. Climbing onto a monster, she shouted, "Everyone, calm down! The most important thing now is to work together to escape." Drawing everyone's attention, she pointed to a canyon, warning, "We can escape through there. As long as we get out of this basin, we can flee easily." Immediately, she used the mystic art starlight to buff everyone present again, encouraging them, "Don't hold back. Use everything you have to push the monsters back and get out of here." Professor Yajeng stepped forward, conjuring his shield of light. Knowing he had to at least get the students out of there, he advanced with all the shield bearers. "By my side, start advancing." The wandering monsters appeared before the group as warriors and shield bearers advanced. The clashing of shields caused an explosion of energy. Behind the shield bearers, priests used their healing magic, enabling their fearless advance. However, while the group tried to move forward, the wandering crystal monsters attacked them. Numerous mana rays hit the shields and barriers created by the shield bearers, who tried to force their way through. But at the moment when everything seemed balanced, the Wandering Lord bellowed his war cry. The sound spread throughout the dungeon, reaching the crystal monsters that were not wanderers. Immediately, under the command of the Wandering Lord, the monsters answered the call. Hundreds of monsters joined those already positioned in the canyon, pressing the human group even more strongly. A glow of energy appeared in the Wandering Lord's eyes, his crystal aura. Instantly, a magic circle seemed to emerge over the entire valley, strengthening the monsters below it. Empowered, the first monster charged, breaking a protective shield magic. With even stronger attack power, the crystal monsters struck the shield bearers with their mana rays. Little by little, the shield bearers found themselves in desperate situations. The damage was too high for the healing to keep up. In an instant, all the mana rays targeted a single shield bearer. Somberly, he murmured, "Help me." But before his vision darkened and his surroundings turned crimson, a desperate shout from a student crossed the battlefield. "A teacher has been eliminated!" Trying to keep everyone calm, Yunsha tried to coordinate them. "Shield bearers, stay in front. Priests, prioritize healing them." Despite maintaining everyone's composure, Yunsha knew they were exhausted, even before the Wandering Lord began to move personally. Soon a rogue seemed to give up on the strategy. "There's no way. At this pace, we won't get through them." Using stealth magic, he advanced, ignoring the others. Fearfully, he said to himself, "It's every man for himself now." He quickly passed through the wandering monsters in front of the shield bearers, since he was unseen. Immediately, a knight shouted, "Those of the wandering class won't follow him. The stealth duration isn't long enough. It won't last until they escape." Right after the knight shouted, he heard a sound and saw a strong glow arise from a region behind him. The Wandering Lord gathered a large amount of energy, preparing an attack. A professor shouted, "Watch out!" However, the Wandering Lord's mana ray attack tore through everything in front of it, not heading toward the group, but targeting the one who had tried to flee, who, in everyone's eyes, was swept away by the attack. Immediately after the attack, the entire canyon began to collapse, closing the passage. Those trapped were shocked to see the passage destroyed. A shield bearer began to tremble with fear, frightening everyone around with his words. "That attack power is absurd. We won't be able to escape." The next moment, the Wandering Lord prepared a new attack. That fearful shield bearer saw the end approaching, but before the attack arrived, two girls moved, breaking out of the siege and advancing against the Wandering Lord. A gigantic shield appeared in front of everyone like a mountain of stone. The Wandering Lord's attack fell upon the two giant shields, trying to force its way through. Yunsha shouted to everyone, "Those with great strength, come help hold the shield. If they fall, we will be wiped out." Panting heavily, Yunsha told everyone that it was a level 70 piece of equipment, so its durability was guaranteed. Because the level was very high, no one could equip it, but they could buy time using it together. Still afraid, many shield bearers could not help. Why does the school dungeon have this kind of monster? Roaring, many began to blame Xiaoxi instead of moving to help. The professor looked around, wondering if even after holding for so long it would all be in vain. For him, the only relief was having saved the two young people earlier, since they shouldn't have been there in danger. However, he realized he was wrong upon seeing the shield bearer from the duo among the other students. Seeing the young man still struggling to help, he asked, "Didn't I tell them to stay in the valley? How did he get here?" Amid the professor's distraction, a crystal monster broke through the defenses, attacking the professor himself. At the last second before the attack hit, Qiaoji shouted, "Surrounding shield!" The shield was used on the professor, immediately broken by the mana ray, but thanks to it, Yajeng survived with a mere 10% of life. Suffering absurd damage, the professor gritted his teeth. With the perimeter defense broken, there was no one left who could stop the wandering species. The crystal monster, raising its fist, attacked the professor, but its punch unexpectedly fell on Qiaoji, who jumped to dodge the attack. Raising his shield, Qiaoji deflected the mana ray from the crystal wanderer. Surprised, the professor couldn't believe a young man possessed such strength. Still, all the shields were being broken by the monsters. The group's defense was rapidly falling. Two crystal monsters, united, prepared a joint mana ray attack against an injured student. In Professor Ya Zheng's eyes, there was no hope left. However, before that attack could fall upon them, the monsters were sliced into stone fragments by someone who appeared unexpectedly. Shocked, Ya Zheng stared at the young man before him. Climbing over the stone debris, Yunche praised, "Qiaoji, you did very well." The young shield-bearer extended his hand, relieved. Smiling, Yunche said, "Leave the rest to me." A few minutes earlier, upon leaving the mirrored world, Yunche found the crystal core. Besides the replicated core in the mirrored world, the real one still remained in its original location. By obtaining both cores, Yunche learned that with the mirrored world, all future harvests would be doubled. The only problem was that the crystal ores were difficult to carry out. If Yunche wanted to take the normal crystal ores to the real world, it would take 10 minutes per ore. He couldn't carry the 75 he wanted, as it would take more than 12 hours. Therefore, Yunche was forced to carry only the most valuable crystal, the replica in the crystal core. As soon as he obtained the second crystal core, Yunche felt the dungeon tremble. The vibrations alerted him that something had happened. Immediately, he ran with the intention of leaving the cave. Touching a mirrored surface, he entered the mirrored world once again, which lasted just under 13 minutes before its cooldown. Discovering that he could enter and exit that world whenever he wanted, while his time had not run out, made him quite confident. Thus, he hurriedly ran through the crystal cave, zigzagging along the narrow path, until he exited the cave and the mirrored world. Yunche was shocked to see that the number of monsters had increased. He did not expect to see so many, but soon discovered the reason. There was a wandering lord, the source of the dangerous aura he had felt at the dungeon entrance. Knowing that Qiaoji and the others were in danger, Yunche moved quickly. He headed toward the first crystal monster, but because he could still enter and exit the mirrored world at will, he used this ability to dodge the monster, pass by it, and exit right after evading it. Yunche had reached level 24. His total mana reached 140 points, and his mana regeneration per second had reached 2.6 points per second. With that, he used the cheat blade to quickly eliminate the wandering monsters threatening the students' lives as he advanced, since his attack power had increased by 330%, with 180% coming from the skill. Although this was already an absurd statistic, to face a wandering lord, who was even stronger than a dungeon lord, Yunche would not be confident without reaching level 30. Using the mirrored world, Yunche approached the area where the two giant shields were. Locating Qiaoji and the professor he was protecting, Yunche moved toward them, and upon immediately exiting the mirrored world, saved them by destroying the crystal monster, positioning himself in front of the two and saving Qiaoji, who was already injured. Immediately, entering and exiting the mirrored world again to move and attack another crystal monster, Yunche shouted, "Those with support skills, use your buffs on me. I will eliminate these wandering species." Immediately, Yunsha used the Mystic Art Starlight on Yunche. Qiaoji, despite being injured, used Armor Shield and Surrounding Shield. Feeling his spirit and attack power increase, Yunche destroyed another crystal monster with his Sword Strike and Heavy Kick. Although the number of monsters was ridiculous, after using the secret treasure, the crystal core, Yunche's HP had increased, and his damage reduction against electric and light types had reached 40%, so it was not dangerous to attack such monsters. Using the vines, Yunche discovered that the monsters were immune to confusion. Therefore, eliminating them would not be as fast as he wanted. Teachers and students were shocked, mouths agape. A shield bearer, confused, asked the others, "Are my eyes deceiving me?" I looked at his status bar and it showed he had the Enchanter class. Why is his attack power so high? Even Professor Ya Zheng was confused. What skills is he using? He's even teleporting. The professor smiled self-deprecatingly, asking, "You were that strong? And here I was worrying about you back then." Before the professor and others, Yunche turned to dust all the stone monsters he encountered on his path. Yunche only stopped when he leveled up once more. With so many rare monsters together, leveling up became much faster. Surprised, Yunsha watched Yunche return to the fight. At first, she thought he was just a daring little thief. She never expected the strength he possessed was beyond imagination. Beside her, even the usually silent Yunyin, the first to notice Yunche's presence in the Ding house, was surprised. In everyone's eyes, Yunche seemed to teleport, jumping from monster to defeat them. Entering and exiting the mirrored world every second, the protagonist cleared each wandering crystal monster. With each group of monsters eliminated, Yunchi leveled up once, twice, 3 times. Soon he reached level 28. Surprised behind Professor Ya Zheng, someone commented, "Does this person have external support? So strong." However, the professor revealed, "I've seen him before. I think he's a student." Everyone, shocked to hear the professor, returned to watching Yunchi fight. However, at that moment, the Wandering Lord began preparing a new attack after recharging its power. Shocked, the teachers warned everyone, shouting, "He's going to attack again!" The Wandering Lord's mana ray cut through the air, heading toward Yunche, who, jumping quickly, managed to dodge. Even being stronger, he still couldn't take that attack head-on. The Wandering Lord's attack continued, devastating everything it touched, tearing through the valley and hitting even the monsters. Yunche knew he needed to do something because as soon as the Wandering Lord started acting, the 2 shields protecting teachers and students from mana ray attacks would no longer be able to fulfill that function. Also aware of this, Professor Ya Zheng shouted, "The number of monsters has decreased. Let's advance toward the exit. It will be too late if the Wandering Lord gets closer." No matter how strong someone is, there's no way to fight against a Wandering Lord. Despite the professor's command, a squire was afraid. "These 2 shields are hard to move. If we run away, we'll be exposed to the Lord's attack." Everyone began to argue, afraid to leave, afraid of being attacked. However, everyone's attention was drawn by a voice. "Leave this to me. If I attack him and draw his attention, you will have a chance to retreat," appearing like a savior. Yunche warned everyone. Worried, Professor Ya Zheng asked what would happen to the young man if everyone fled and left him behind. Yunche knew that if the Wandering Lord was not defeated, he would gather even more monsters and roam the outside world. In the past, almost all major cataclysms had been caused by Wandering Lords, and that was why he wanted to act, telling the professor, "I will stay and eliminate this monster." With just over 5 minutes left in the mirrored world's time, Yunche had taken on the mission to save everyone. While attacks fell from all sides of the dungeon, the instructor led the group of teachers and students to flee. "No one can fight so many monsters at once. If we escape quickly, he can escape too." Beside the instructor, another asked confusedly, "Didn't he say he was going to defeat that lord?" But Ya Zheng thought such words were just to calm them down. With them was Chao He, feeling useless for only being able to run away at such a moment and wishing Yunche wouldn't get into trouble. The protagonist was constantly swinging his sword, sequentially striking the stone monsters in his path to level up. The Wandering Lord did not stand still, launching a beam of energy at him. But to evade, Yunche entered the mirror world, leaving that realm the next moment to attack the big boss monster. Yunche's sword strike pierced the rock with overwhelming energy, but the giant mountain lord lost less than 300 life points from his more than 13,000. Moreover, with such high defense, the lord monster instantly healed after being wounded. Looking up, Yunche knew where he needed to attack. On the head of the Wandering Lord was a crystal, his core, his weak point. However, needing to dodge the stone attacks, Yunchi didn't think his attack power was enough yet. Additionally, Yunchi saw another problem. The effect bonuses they had cast on him were running out, and his mana was depleting. It wouldn't be possible to activate the cheat blade many more times. With all this in mind, Yunchi gave his all in his strikes to level up as quickly as possible. As soon as he advanced to a new area, the protagonist glimpsed a different glow. The glow came from the center of the Lord's palm. Immediately, Yunche entered the mirror world, dodging the attack the monster launched as it predicted his movement. Unexpectedly, as soon as Yunche left the mirror world, the giant lord's hand energy was still present in the air, causing continuous damage that reduced his life points by 50 every second. Yunche leaned forward, trying to withstand the shockwave. He couldn't rely so much on the mirror world, as the skill's time was running out. He would have to get used to dodging. Yunche saved the remaining 4 minutes of time in the mirror world, using the undead to block attacks. However, there was also a problem with this: the mana consumption from continuously reviving them. Faced with so many difficulties, he wondered if he should retreat, but at that moment, a giant shield fell in front of him. He was confused to see Yunsha, Yunyin, and Qiaoji. Yunsha revealed why they were there. "Your little brother begged so much that we had no choice but to come help you." Denying that he begged, Qiaoji simply said there were many people who could help with the escape, so he thought to help. Smiling slightly, Yunche thanked him. Since the secret boss was very dangerous, Yunsha said they would cover Yunche so he could retreat and recover. However, returning to face the stone monsters, he declared, "No need. With your help, I won't have to hold back anymore." In an instant, Yunche had already swung his sword countless times, giving a final sigh to the stone golems around him. Leveling up once again, he achieved the feat of reaching level 30. At that level, Yunche glimpsed enough attack power for what he aimed for, equipping the Corrupted Knight's armor, the level 30 equipment. Yunsha quickly understood what he planned to do. "You're not planning to climb the Secret Lord and attack its weak point, are you? It's impossible to reach that height." Ignoring her comment, Yunche took out a skill book he had saved. He had finally learned the gravitational attraction skill, which pulls the target toward him. Its reverse version, however, does the opposite. It throws him toward the target. Immediately before using the skill, Yunche summoned as many cheat blades as possible, increasing his attack power. Assuring that everything was under control, he extended his hand toward the monster. As soon as he pulled his hand toward his body, he disappeared, being thrown upward. Before Yunsha could realize, Yunche had already reached the top of the crystal. She and Yunyin were stunned. The protagonist swung his sword several times, overflowing his aura's energy to break parts of the crystal. The Wandering Lord roared in pain when attacked at his weak point, and released tremendous energy that caused damage around him. Amid the attacks, Yunche suffered continuous damage that reduced more than 100 life points every second. However, this only made him try even harder, until he completely broke the crystal when he had less than 20% of his life points left. A notification appeared for him. "You defeated the Wandering Lord. 5,000 experience points obtained, as well as the title Wanderer Hunter." Yunche, besides the experience points and the title, also obtained 2 skill books: the Golden Light Barrier and the Angel's Blessing. As soon as the crystal and the Wandering Lord were shattered, Yunche gained 3 levels as a reward due to the experience acquired. His friend Qiaoji celebrated how strong he was. In front of him, Yunsha and Yunyin could hardly believe that he had actually defeated such a terrifying monster alone. Yunche glimpsed the glow of 2 golden items dropping, but before checking them, he felt the ground shake. The great stone monster, having been defeated, began to topple. Yunsha, seeing Yunchi on top of the monster, shouted for him to be careful. The protagonist moved quickly, descending the stone mountain that was the Wandering Lord. Along the way, he noticed the presence of something, a cave. Approaching the cave where there were several crystals, he realized something else, muttering to himself, "Wandering race and human remains?" Entering the cave and looking around, he could tell that a Wandering Lord much more powerful than the one he had just faced had been born there long ago, as well as understand the reason for the intense battle marks in the place. Looking further ahead, Yunche saw the silhouette of a man atop a stone hill. As if frozen in time, there was the body of Qiao En, still thrusting his sword into the rock. There, where many monsters piled up, Qiaozhi's ancestor stood at the top. Upon entering the cave, Yunsha was shocked. "Is that the traitor Qiao En? I heard he was eliminated by the hero Ding Kun, but I never expected to see such a thing." Yunsha looked around at the bodies of monsters and humans and noted, "These are clearly the consequences of countless battles between monsters and humans, completely different from the statue in the Modern History Memorial Hall. This definitely isn't someone trampled." Silently, Yunche bit his lips, annoyed. At that moment, Qiaoji approached, drawing their attention. "You may not believe it, but I think my great-grandfather might not have been a bad man." Qiaoji revealed that since childhood, he had searched for all stories about his great-grandfather. Whenever it came to his specific experiences, the descriptions were vague, but he had still found some details. He always went to dungeons that didn't match his level. "Tell me, why would someone of rank S, someone with a profession above level 60, come to a low-level dungeon?" Pointing to the surroundings, Qiaozi answered his own question. "Because this is a dungeon that could spawn a Wandering Lord. Such beings are the source of catastrophes as they summon all monsters nearby. In the past, there were not enough armies to defeat such monsters, even in dungeons. That's why they had to rely on powerful and responsible professionals to regularly clear the dungeons." Pointing to the pile of monsters, where his grandfather was on top, Qiaoji declared confidently, "My great-grandfather was one of those people. He came here to extinguish the disaster before it happened." The 3 standing before Qiaoji remained silent. listening. With his head down, he trembled as he declared, "You might think I'm lying. Even my family says I'm just seeking comfort, that I'm reading between the lines." At that moment, Yunche stepped forward and placing his hand on his friend's shoulder showed a smile. "I believe you." Yunsha and Yunyin were surprised by his action. Even Qiaozhi did not expect it. Memories from the past came to Yunche's mind. Qiaowen was a brave person who climbed on tables and declared he didn't need a master. He had the confidence to overcome anything. However, when facing many monsters at once, he would cry, asking to be saved. When all this passed and they gathered, he would raise his pride again, pouting and claiming he had never asked anyone to save him. When he grew up, even injured, upon hearing that a new dungeon had been discovered, he would smile and ask them to trust the one who secretly worked hard to prove himself to others. Qiaowen was always criticized for his choice of class advancement. The Sword Guardian, the weakest among all the squires. But he was confident this was a class undervalued because of its point allocation, and that no other squire class could fight it if well built. It was with this confidence that he continued to advance and defeat monsters, even abandoning his own team without permission because he couldn't stand a fight against the wandering race. For him, saving people was just a bonus. Remembering his friend nicknamed Ben, he swore he would settle scores with the Ding family. Sometime later, Ding Ji at the Ding residence frowned, questioning whether his nephew was telling the truth. Ding Shu categorically stated that he could even ask those responsible for the dungeon that Yunche was truly amazing. Ding Shu told his uncle that he had been blocked at the dungeon entrance by the teachers, so he couldn't enter. But when people came out of the dungeon, everyone was talking about the fall of the Wandering Lord. People were commenting among themselves that the Wandering Lord had been eliminated by just one person. Many were still incredulous about the appearance of a Tier 4 monster near level 40. Ding Shu had clearly heard the group mention that the name of the person who eliminated the monster was Yunche, and they wondered what his true identity was. At the Ding family house, everyone fell silent after hearing the report. Ding Jie stood up after hearing it and commanded, "Summon the Ding family guards to come with me to the traitor's dungeon." However, he remembered something. Ding Shu had said that a kid from the Chao family was also present. With a sinister look, he ordered, "Bring the entire Chao family too." In the dungeon, Yun Qi collected the legendary skill book, the Golden Light Barrier. He handed the book to Qiao Ji, stating that there was no level requirement. Surprised, Yunsha asked if he was really giving a legendary skill to someone else. He simply said the skill was for squires, so it couldn't be used. When giving it to Qiao Ji, he also said, "Maybe your great-grandfather used this skill several times." Impressed, Yunsha commented that she did not see a lack of power in Yunche. Compared to him, she perceived a great gap between them. You possess many high-level skills, whether it's the skill to suddenly disappear or the ability to summon so many undead. Hearing Yunsha, the protagonist realized something that left him astonished. He remembered that his undead were summoned from souls that appeared in the mirror world. Seeing that the time of his skill had been reset, Yunche quickly entered the mirrored world. Looking at the top of the monster pile, he was stunned. He saw the entire pile, as well as the man at the top, moving like souls. In the real world, Yunyin wanted to hurry Yunsha so they would leave, since the young mage had a ceremony soon. Yunsha realized they had been there a long time. She wanted to stay because things seemed interesting and she wanted to understand where Yunche had been, missing for so long. When Denden's soul approached, the protagonist spoke to it. "I never thought we would meet again. There are still so many things I want to say, but it's a shame you can't respond." Around Qiaowen's soul, a dark energy formed until he roared fiercely. Yunchi had seen his old friend become an undead but did not want to fight him. Qiaowen, however, attacked with a large amount of dark energy that enveloped Yunche. The shadow around the protagonist made him see various images, scenes from Ben's life, from his birth, youth, and the time he fought monsters. One of these memories, however, was when he was cowardly attacked by Ding Kun. Somehow, Ding Kun's posture seemed familiar to Yunche. At that moment, like a mirror, the memories fragmented. Looking at the undead in front of him, Yunche wondered what was happening. Before he could try to talk to Ben, Yunche was attacked by his possessed friend. He blocked the sword attack, quickly retreating to dodge several others. While dodging, Yunche analyzed Qiaowen's actions, realizing only battle instincts remained. Trying to leave the mirror world, he was shocked to find he couldn't leave the current area. Sighing, he found he had no choice but to fight. In the real world, Qiao Ji was surprised. Before him appeared several guards of the Ding family, Ding Shu and Ding Jie, who questioned him. "Where is Yunche? Did he notice we were coming and run away?" Smiling, Ding Jie was upset, as the fun would be halved. Seeing Ding Shu, Qiao Ji looked away, asking why they were there. Ding Gay, with a malicious smile, interrupted. Don't pretend, kid from the Chow family. Did you think we wouldn't notice you sneaking into our house with Yun Che? Chao Ji was about to deny any involvement when Ding Shu shouted, Did you think I wouldn't recognize your screams? Shock appeared in Chao Ji's eyes. Ding Gay, with a malicious look, raised his hand and said, It doesn't matter, because I brought a little gift. Chao Ji couldn't believe what he was seeing. Among the Ding family guards, he saw his entire family, his great-grandfather, his grandmother, his great-uncle, and his aunt. Lastly, he saw his mother. Chao Ji's old great-grandfather suddenly started shouting, Kneel, you little animal! Apologize to the hero's family! Apologize to young master Ding Shu! Chao Ji tried to refuse, but the old man kept reprimanding him. What have I taught you since you were young? I taught you how to behave in front of the Ding family. Kneel! Chao Ji couldn't hold back and responded firmly. Do you want our family to be the Ding family's dogs for generations? The fury in his voice frightened his own family. Suddenly, one of his relatives knelt down, shouting, Yes! As descendants of a traitor, being dogs is already a blessing. Chao Ji's aunt began trembling with fear, begging her nephew to think about their father's situation. Hearing his aunt mention her husband, his mother also started trembling, as it was very difficult for her and the whole family. Chao Ji couldn't believe his family wanted to remain in that situation forever. Trying to convince them, he desperately pointed behind him. Look at this situation. My great-grandfather entered this secret realm just to prevent a catastrophe. It was only because many attacked him back then that he sacrificed himself. With a determined look, the young man put all his thoughts into words. I have been gathering information about my great-grandfather all this time, but I lacked decisive proof. Now the evidence is right before us. Grandfather was not a villain or a traitor. The truth is completely different from their propaganda. As soon as the truth is revealed, my great-grandfather's name will be cleared. We will never have to live like this again. Chao Ji shouted at the top of his lungs. The Ding family has no right to treat us like this. Great-grandfather, uncle, second uncle. They should not have been attacked because of this. At the boy's words, Ding Gay began to laugh. He slowly walked toward Chao Ji, revealing that everything he had said was true. Your great-grandfather Chao En was indeed ambushed. He was not a villain. To be clear, it was my father who sought power precisely to ambush him. Ding Jie laughed, showing confidence in front of Chao Ji's face. But who cares about the truth? Chao En was a traitor to the empire, so he deserved to be vilified. Laughing and showing the strength of his family, Ding Jie asked what was the problem if the young man's father had gone mad, or the family's reputation was attacked, since they were descendants of a traitor. Pointing to Chao Ji's family present in the dungeon, Ding Jie revealed the truth. Your entire family already knew this. Otherwise, why do you think the people you named were eliminated? He loosened his tie and ordered with a smile, Kneel. Immediately, all of Chao Ji's family present knelt before him. Even the young man's mother knelt, begging, Son, kneel. Just admit guilt and don't resist, it's useless. Chao Ji's mother cried, wiping her face with tears. Mom really doesn't want to lose her son after her husband went mad. Mom really can't take this anymore. Hearing his mother cry, Chao Ji couldn't help but tremble, weakening. He remembered his mother before she aged, opening her arms to hug him and telling him not to listen to others, treating him as the best. At that moment, Ding Shu began to laugh and shouted, The greatest fool of all time! Whether you want to kneel or not, you will kneel anyway. He raised his leg, kicking toward Chao Ji. But unexpectedly, the young squire raised his hand, blocking the kick. Chao Ji grabbed Ding Shu's leg, spun him in the air, and slammed him to the ground with all his strength. Knocking Ding Shu down, he swore, I will never kneel again. Furious, Ding Shu got up, bringing out his fire crystal hammer while shouting, How dare you fight back? Let me remind you how a punching bag should behave! Ding Shu charged at Chao Ji, who at the last moment drew a shield. Using the shield's body, Chao Ji struck Ding Shu, throwing him backward. Ding Shu couldn't believe what was happening. Furious, Chao Ji threw a punch at Ding Shu while shouting, Mother, we are the true descendants of the heroes. The punch from Chao Ji caught the attention of Ding Gay, who frowned. Ding Shu, still in shock, put his hand to his face where he had been hit. His gaze turned malicious. Impossible. How could you possibly have become so strong all of a sudden? Ding Shu tried to vent his anger on Chao Ji, but his attacks only fell upon the young man's shield, no matter how many times he tried to break his defense. After defending for a long time, Chao Ji turned the tables, knocking Ding Shu down once more with a punch. Chao Ji's family was surprised to see the boy display such bravery. Chao Ji looked down, warning, I'm not the person I used to be anymore. Inside the mirrored world, Yuncha continued to fight against his friend's ghost. The shadow carried a shield while swinging a sword emotionlessly. Faced with Benben's complete fighting form, Yuncha felt that the power gap between them was too great. Against the shield-wielding shadow, Yuncha felt that he would have been crushed if Benben hadn't been a defensive class, or if the shadow fought with consciousness. After retreating for a while, Yunche managed to get past the shadow. Knowing all of Benben's weaknesses from having been his teacher, he found an opening to attack from the side. Yunche landed the sword strike, but only caused 50 damage points. Benben had almost 3,000 health points. Being a defensive class and being at level 60, Yunche couldn't do much, even with the cheating blade boosting his attack. Suddenly, Benben's shadow screamed furiously, overflowing with powerful flames. The legendary skill Golden Light Barrier charged at Yunche, who attacked it while retreating. He felt that things were getting more and more problematic. Outside, Dingshu used a hammer skill to attack Chaoji, hitting his shield while roaring, "You bastard!" But Chaoji counterattacked, hitting Dingshu on the cheek. In front of everyone, Chaoji continued to crush Dingshu. Seeing how his nephew couldn't even defeat a boy from the Chao family, Dinga activated a technique that transformed his data into claws. With a metallic fist, he charged at Chaoji. "Uncle will avenge your fury, Dingshu." Dingo's punch landed on Chaoji's shield, who activated a skill. Dinge was shocked to see the golden light emerge. The activation of the golden light barrier threw him away. Inside it, next to Dingshu, Chaoji roared, "Stand back and watch. You call yourselves a family of heroes? You are just cowards who don't dare to fight one-on-one." Various attacks fell upon a light barrier. Yunche was facing Benben's skill. The barrier was not only linked to the user's defensive statistics. As long as it didn't take damage more than twice its tolerance, it would be able to withstand at least 10 attacks. Yunche attacked with countless sequential blows, trying to destroy the consumable type skill. Even small damage drained the barrier's energy, which broke after 10 attacks. The same thing happened outside. Dingo destroyed the golden light barrier raised by Chaoji. With a grim look, he threatened, "So what if you have the light barrier? If it's used by trash, I don't care." Holding Dingshu with his swollen face, Chaoji roared, "If my great-grandfather were here, you would be kneeling for mercy." At that moment, Dinge's fury exploded with a powerful aura, pushing Chaoji away from Dingshu. Dinge stated, mocking, "Your great-grandfather, the one who perished in a low-level secret realm? Even if he came, it would be him who would kneel." Dinge jumped on the ground, activating a gravitational skill that destroyed the terrain while forcing Chaoji's body down. With his body under pressure, Chaoji coughed heavily. Dinge drew an axe and walked toward Chaoji with a dark look. "Still holding on? Let's see how much longer you'll be able to." Suddenly, Chaoji's mother jumped in front of Dinge, begging, "Master of the three families, Chaoji is just an ignorant young man. Please spare him!" In tears, Chaoji's mother swore that she herself would kneel, that she would do anything for her son to be spared. Dinge smiled maliciously upon hearing the request and proposed, "How about this? Boy, either you kneel or I'll take your mother." But he soon changed his mind. "Forget it. There are many better people out there." He then swung the stone axe. Chaoji tried to stop him, but it was too late. Dinge's attack created a large smoke screen. However, Chaoji did not encounter despair. Someone emerged from amidst the smoke, shocking everyone. Surprised, Dinge looked at the shadow before him. "Are you Chaoen?" Chaoji's mother was shocked to see her grandfather. The members of the Ding family were terrified, fearing as they saw Chaoen who had possibly resurrected. The Chao family, however, realized that the ancestor was in a form similar to a lich. Accompanying the shadow of Chaoen was Yunche. You disrespected him before, so of course he would return from the underworld for a reckoning. The shadow of Chaoen stood before the Ding family. However, they were not intimidated. In mockery, Dinga commanded, "Put them on the ground." Immediately, dozens of angry-eyed soldiers leaped upon Chaoen's spirit. Chaoen used 4 skills at once: Iron Armor, Shield Armor, Guardian's Aura, and Group Shield, strengthening his body to block the sword attacks. He entered the enemy group, counterattacking and destroying their blades. The Chao family was impressed. Xiaozhi quickly ran to observe the incredible blocking techniques his great-grandfather was executing. Dinge pointed his axe at Yunche and commented, "That's an undead you summoned, right? You've done this before at my house." He smiled maliciously, leaping onto Chaoen's shadow. "Only level 33? An undead summoned by you is just trash." However, Chaoen's shield consumed the power of the axe attack with shadows. Dinge was surprised, but immediately launched countless other axe attacks, trying to break Chaoen's defense, without success. Faced with the blocking techniques, Dinge reached out, releasing a red energy. In the face of absolute power, these techniques are nothing. With the full power of his energy, Dinge attacked fiercely with a crushing axe blow, but golden flames surged, creating a shield that hit him mid-attack, the golden light barrier. As Dinge was forced to retreat, Yunche commented, "Even with Benben becoming an undead, he's still in the S-class. His golden light barrier alone is capable of keeping you busy for at least half a day." Being pushed away by the light barrier, Dinge yelled to his subordinates, "Everyone, attack together! We'll drain the energy from that quickly!" However, no one answered Dinge's order, which made him look around for them. He gritted his teeth upon seeing the subordinates being pressed by undead skeletons. Dinge scorned the difficulty he was facing and conjured a strong energy to cover his entire body. With a roar, Dinge's attack power increased by 15%. Whether Chaoen or the undead, they are only summoned creatures. Eliminating the summoner will make them disappear. Dinge ignored the golden light barrier and rushed towards Yunche. He opened his hands into claws, confident. Having obtained countless high-class treasures left by his grandfather Ding Kun, he knew he would win. However, Dinggae's certainty was cut short by Yunche's sword. Surprised to be the only one wounded in the brief confrontation, Dinggae turned to attack the young man who had passed him. The claws of Dinggae's armor sliced through the air towards Yunche, but he vanished. Dinggae didn't even know what was happening, but he found out when he felt the sword hit him from behind. As soon as he suffered the pain of the attack, he roared fiercely, overflowing with energy to throw Yunche away. The protagonist retreated at the same moment Xiaoen advanced. The spirit raised his sword, which split, transforming into a platform for Yunche to use as a boost. Yunche was hurled against Dinggae, brandishing his sword against the chest plate of the armor. Upon having his armor stained red, Dinggae cursed, only to face a look of fury. He could not keep up with Yunche's speed, who was hitting him from all angles and directions. Dinggae screamed miserably as he saw his gauntlet fall along with his arm. Terrified, he hastily called for a priest to heal him. However, as a being of darkness, Yunche was already behind him to continue the attacks. In a desperate move, Dinggae increased the gravity around him, but Yunche disappeared. The protagonist reappeared in the distance, out of the range of the crushing gravity. Yunche used the pause to mock. "What's wrong? Are you scared?" With a dark look due to the pain, Dinggae continued to scream, "Priest! Why haven't you healed me yet?" However, looking around, he discovered that the subordinates were too busy, being massacred by the undeads all around. The skeletons were dominating the Ding family so quickly that Dinggae didn't even notice when it happened. Surrounded by spirits, Yunche asked, "Do you still think my undead are as weak as the ones you saw at your house?" He then activated a reverse skill, the evil spirit possession, increasing his attack and defense by 30%. With the soul power overflowing in his body, Yunche's hair turned silver like Xiaoen's. He was going to show that, with a legendary buff, the undead were even stronger than when they resisted the Wandering Lord. Seeing the power surrounding Yunche, Dinggae realized he couldn't beat him. He then made a decision: flee. However, before he could run away, a gigantic sword and shield blocked his escape route. But Dinggae hadn't given up. He charged at the shield, preparing an attack with the arm he had left. Before he could do anything, however, countless other swords and shields continued to fall, blocking the path even more and surrounding him so he couldn't escape. Yunche entered the sea of swords and shields, revealing, "This is the exclusive skill of the Sword Guard class, the absolute formation of shields and swords. No one below S-class can escape it." In front of Dinggae, Yunche asked him to try to run away. Suddenly, Dinggae pulled out a red stone with evil energy and shouted, "Don't come any closer!" Dinggae possessed a void bomb, an S-class item his grandfather had given him. If this explodes with your level and health points, you will be eliminated. The protagonist frowned but was not intimidated, telling Dinggae to try to use the item. Desperate for not being able to intimidate Yunche, he yelled, "Do you really plan to give up your own life? With my health points, I can survive this. You can't." However, Yunche had an escape plan. He sent the spirit of Ben, someone who could resurrect again. As soon as Dinggae's attention was drawn, the protagonist reappeared behind him. "Don't be arrogant when you can't even hit me." Yunche's sword cut caused Dinggae to lose the Void Stone. It fell to the ground, draining the power that would activate it. The protagonist ordered only once: kneel. With no arms left to fight, Dinggae was forced to kneel. His willpower no longer existed. Watching the situation, Chaozu smiled again. Dingshu had been beaten by him, and now various swords prevented him from getting up. Yunche stepped on Dinggae, extending his sword while asking, "Tell me, how much do you think your life is worth?" Sometime later, Yunche was checking the dozens of items he had obtained. There were even packages of healing potions among them. Those potions restored 100 health points in 10 seconds. The regeneration speed was not fast enough, especially for Dinggae, who had now been eliminated and transformed into a shadow. After eliminating Dinggae, Yunche saw his soul appear in the mirrored world. Thus, the protagonist easily turned him into an undead. Although somber, Yunche confirmed he could expand his undead army by eliminating other beings. Facing Dingshu on the ground, the protagonist decided to keep him alive, as he might be useful in the future. While Yunche was checking the items in his inventory, Chaozu's great-uncle stammered, "So young, and already so strong." The great-uncle imagined that the young man had guided Chaozu, which had caused the boy to awaken his inner strength. One of Chaozu's uncles hastily asked, "What will we do now? With the head of the 3 clans gone, the Ding family will surely retaliate. It will be the end of us." With a worried look, the man recognized the strength of the young man who eliminated Dinggae, but didn't believe he could be a match for the great hero who had defeated the family's great-grandfather a long time ago and had now become even stronger. Yunche agreed with him, especially if what happened was exposed, shortening the time he had to get stronger. Thinking of Ding Kun, the protagonist affirmed to himself that he needed to evolve fast enough to face him. At that moment, the protagonist was surprised to receive a notification. Soldier leveled up. He looked around, realizing that the skeletons he had sent to hunt monsters were getting stronger. With their current level and equipment, they could stand side by side with the stone monsters. However, that secret realm wouldn't be enough to sustain the evolution of Yunche and the skeletons. This had been an important reason for sending them to evolve, to find the location of the secret realm lord. A few minutes passed until Yunche found the level 41 monster. Chained up was a monster with multiple layers of shells and a gigantic golden core where its mouth should be. Different from the wandering lords, the secret realm lord was the very core of the entire realm. Yunche sent the spirit of Denden to attack the monster's weak point, in order to completely sweep the secret realm. The outside of the secret realm was being guarded by teachers, who must have seen when the entire Qiao family was taken to the portal by Dingge. The protagonist knew it would be suspicious if the Qiao family left the portal alone. Knowing this, Yunche planned to have the Qiao family escape amidst the chaos as the secret realm began to disappear. While Yunche was finishing his plans, Qiao En defeated the secret realm lord. As soon as the notification that the lord had been eliminated appeared, everyone saw the secret realm begin to fall apart. The protagonist revealed to the Qiao family that he had defeated the lord. Since the secret realm is going to disappear and cause some chaos, the Ding family won't be able to immediately respond to Dingge's disappearance. The protagonist asked everyone to take advantage of the chaos to escape, avoiding momentary danger. He also gave a single warning: if the Ding family pressures you again, just let me know. The Qiao family was stunned by Yunche's help. The protagonist called back all the undeads, preparing to leave the dungeon when he saw a notification. The mirrored world, now level 2, had transformed the spiritual core of the secret realm into a mirrored world. Receiving a large amount of experience for the mirrored world, he discovered what was needed to evolve it. Since the previous evolution had greatly increased his strength, Yunche planned to evolve it again in the following days, to finally approach Ding Kun's strength. The path to strength and confrontation. Various guards were protecting a rich man's private secret realm. One of the soldiers asked, bored, "Do we really need to take this seriously? Who would dare to invade a private secret realm?" At that very moment, a blur passed him. Yunche crossed the secret realm portal, which caught the attention of the knight, who saw nothing from behind, only heard something strange. But in the end, he thought he had just been mistaken. Since most civil guards were around level 30, Yunche was confident enough to invade the secret realms unseen. He invaded a second secret realm in the forest, as well as a third with a blue portal. Sometimes he was discovered, but too late. Continuing to hunt inside countless secret realms, he saw the time to face Ding Kun getting closer. However, Yunche didn't rush. He remained calm, continuing to evolve while attacking the lords of the secret realms. Keeping his cool, he traveled from realm to realm, avoiding making mistakes. Whether they were water monsters or even dark centaurs, he used them to become increasingly stronger. Realm after realm, he destroyed and increased the power of the shadows. While Yunche was gaining experience points for the mirrored world, several news reports warned about private secret realms being invaded. The news spread as the days passed, and Yunche gained more and more experience. In one of these news reports about the secret realm destroyer, it was said that the public security department was taking the situation seriously and sending senior officers to investigate. With a newspaper in hand, a person asked those around if Yunche was responsible for it. The elder of the Qiao family was sure that the cleanup of the secret realms was related to the young man. Frowning, he imagined that at some point Yunche's actions would make the Ding family find him. However, he was certain. He did all this for us. Otherwise, we wouldn't have escaped here. Being in a city days away from the Ding family, and in a well-hidden residence, they had even concealed all traces while traveling. They were sure they were safe, confident that they had finally escaped the Ding family. Suddenly, however, an explosion occurred, tearing down one of the walls. From the shadows, a person emerged with a mocking voice. "Escape from us? Do you really think you could flee with the help of that criminal?" The second son of the Ding family, Ding Hao, currently at level 42, had found them. He declared, "Even if you don't have connections with him, daring to flee the Ding family means you'll have to suffer because of him." A red gaze appeared on Ding Hao's face, threatening the Qiao family as he descended to face them. "Did you underestimate the hero's family? Not to mention foolish traitors like you, even the whereabouts of that criminal have already been found." In front of a secret realm in the distance, Yunche, accompanied by another person, watched an army waiting for him. Having already reached level 42, he declared with a grim look, "Ding Kun, I've come to find you." Yunche stood before a large secret realm. He had only conquered the private secret realms of level 30. Continuing to attack them would be inefficient for leveling up. High-level secret realms, however, were like the hero's secret realms, state-controlled, guarded by the military, and surrounded by 2 kilometers of protection. Yunche could only explore 200 meters when entering the mirrored world, which prevented him from getting close by that method. As Yunche wondered how to sneak into the portal, the young woman with him noticed his doubt and commented, "So, the reason you called me is so I can get you inside?" Yunche refused. "No way. I don't know how much you know about my identity, but even for me, without a pass, I can't enter. At the same moment, Yoon-chae held up the passes. Upon taking them, Yoon-sha praised his preparation. Yoon-sha checked, however, that these were temporary passes. You need an accompanying person to use them. Otherwise, we won't pass inspection. With a sharp look, she questioned, you avoided your family, and now you want to sneak into a secret realm without being noticed? For what reason? Yoon-cha reminded the young woman of the incident where she had seen Chow-en's state. Since he isn't as horrible as the propaganda claims, there's something suspicious about the supposed rebellion that happened in the past. I want to help the Chow family clear their name and find the truth. Yoon-sha rolled her eyes, questioning if Yoon-chae thought she was stupid. Pointing to the heavily guarded fort, she reminded him that he had no relation to the Chow family, yet he wanted to take risks offending the heroes. I remember you even infiltrated their families. Crossing her arms, she questioned if he had forgotten what happened to Chow-en. Irritated, she even asked why he had stolen the entry passes. Changing the subject, she recalled how some time ago Ding-ge had entered the secret realm to cause trouble for him and Chao-zhi, and how no one found him after the secret realm disappeared. Commenting on all this made her look at Yoon-chae. Clearly, you are not just trying to confront the heroes. I feel more like you are hostile to them. The protagonist smiled slightly, contemplating her deductions. With a sharp gaze, Yoon-sha stared at him. Your surname is Yoon, first name Chae. Could you be connected to the traitor Yoon-chae from the past? The protagonist shrugged at her question, reminding her, your surname is also Yoon, isn't it? Could you be connected to him? Irritated, Yoon-sha replied that she had never done anything bad and corrected him, revealing her surname wasn't Yoon. She had just changed her surname to avoid trouble. The protagonist used the same excuse as her. If your real surname isn't Yoon, why do you think mine is? Annoyed at being continuously provoked, Yoon-sha warned, aren't you afraid I'll report you? You should be begging for my help. With a malicious smile while waving the entry pass, she reminded him, if I report you to that army, you can say goodbye. The protagonist remained silent until he swapped a grim expression for a confident smile, replying, I believe you won't do that. Yoon-sha crossed her arms in surprise, listening to Yoon-cha speak. I believe that you, who put yourself in danger in the secret realm to help other students, wouldn't side with the Ding family. As he approached Yoon-sha, the protagonist retrieved a stolen diary from the Ding family. The descendants of the so-called hero, Ding-kun, committed countless atrocities using the ancestors' lineage to intimidate men and women, doing all kinds of despicable things. Taking the diary, Yoon-sha showed a look of mockery. Just because of that? You miscalculated. I don't care about that. Raising an eyebrow, Yoon-sha revealed she thought he would be calmer, but he, of all people, was putting his own life in the hands of other people. You've never experienced betrayal, right? Faced with the question, Yoon-chae displayed a melancholy expression as he remembered the past. Before such an expression, Yoon-sha crossed her arms, intrigued. With a righteous voice, Yoon-cha declared, so if I've been betrayed, I can no longer trust others? I'd rather believe that your true nature is not evil. Faced with Yoon-chae's words, the girl couldn't answer him. In the end, she just shivered, afraid of what might happen if she helped him. Irritated, she turned her back to him. If you really trust me, come with me. See for yourself if I'll betray you or sell you out. As Yoon-chae followed her, Yoon-sha looked at him out of the corner of her eye. She had never imagined that, even now, someone would trust her as a good person. With Yoon-chae wearing a hood, the two approached the guards protecting the secret realm. A man was waiting for her and greeted her when he saw her. Ah, Miss Yoon-sha, the heroes have been waiting for you for several days. The orders have already been given. You can enter immediately. Confused, the man asked the young woman why she hadn't entered with Elder Ding Dan, as he had entered the secret realm moments ago. Looking at the hooded person, the man asked if he was Yoon-sha's guard. Please, don't misunderstand. It's just that when Elder Ding entered, he warned us that temporary passes from the Ding family had been stolen, so we needed to be cautious. Immediately, Yoon-sha pressured the man, questioning if he was interrogating her. The man quickly corrected himself, claiming only to have received orders from the security center, as a criminal had recently been attacking secret realms, as well as the hero's secret realms. Yoon-sha ended up looking at Yoon-chae, who was hiding his identity. The guard monotonously asked, we are only doing this for your safety? Please. Yoon-sha came to look at Yoon-chae with mockery. They are insisting on investigating you. She hugged him, putting her arm over his shoulder. You could let them check your identity. Before Yoon-chae could take off his hood, Yoon-sha stared penetratingly at the man, questioning him. Do you think I wouldn't recognize my own guard? Maybe I'm a fake myself. Don't you want to inspect me too? The guards swallowed hard when they heard Yoon-sha's suggestion. They wouldn't dare question her. Thus, they made way for Yoon-sha and her guard to pass. Upon entering the secret realm, Yoon-cha observed the girl, realizing that her status was even higher than he had imagined. As soon as they entered, Yoon-sha warned, because of your trust, I brought you here. I don't care what you do, but I will only go this far. I won't help you. While thanking her, Yuncha summoned a skeleton wearing a hood identical to his. Take him with you when you leave. Whatever I do, they won't suspect you. Snorting, she was thankful he at least had some conscience. The protagonist immediately entered the mirrored world, walking through the trees. Now he could finally use the skill unlocked when the mirrored world reached level 3. If you enjoyed today's recap and want more manhwa content, subscribe to the channel. We're starting this journey now, and I hope that together we can strengthen this new community. So go ahead and like the video, comment for future parts, and share it with your friends. Thank you so much for joining us, and until next time.